The courtroom buzzed with anticipation as Elon Musk entered through the heavy wooden doors. The press cameras flashed, their lenses capturing every angle of his sharp suit and determined expression. The walls seemed to close in on him as he made his way to the front of the room, where his legal team was already seated. Reporters whispered among themselves, speculating about the case that had brought the tech mogul to this very moment. A lawsuit that threatened to unravel everything he'd worked for. His businesses, his reputation, and even his vision for the future were at risk. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Musk had been here before, scrutinized, mocked, and dissected by the media. But this time, the stakes felt different. This was not just another controversy. This was a fight for his legacy. As he sat down beside his attorneys, he could hear the opposing counsel, a woman named Erica Sullivan, already speaking with an air of confidence that bordered on arrogance. She was well known for her ruthless courtroom tactics and sharp tongue. Sullivan didn't waste a moment. She turned to the jury, flashing a smile that sent a chill down Musk's spine. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," she began, her voice carrying through the room like a hammer striking an anvil. "We are here today because of one man, Elon Musk, a man who thinks he can do no wrong, a man who believes the rules don't apply to him. But we're about to prove, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that he is nothing more than a charlatan, a man who has manipulated the public and his employees alike." Musk clenched his jaw, his knuckles tightening on the armrest. This wasn't just a legal battle. It felt like a personal attack. The mocking tone of Sullivan's words echoed in his mind, and the press in the room added fuel to the fire, taking notes and sharing quotes as if this was some sort of entertainment spectacle. The courtroom was alive with murmurs, and Musk could sense the mounting pressure. But he wasn't fazed. Not yet. "Mr. Musk," Sullivan continued, turning her gaze directly onto him, "you've made a career out of building empires, haven't you? But let's be honest, your entire persona is a house of cards. One tweet, one careless remark, and everything comes crashing down. You've played fast and loose with the truth, and it's time for you to pay the price." The jury watched as Musk remained silent, his face unreadable. He had been through far worse than this. Unrelenting media storms, public ridicule, and harsh criticism from all corners. But what the press didn't understand was that this was just another chapter in his story. The more they mocked him, the more fuel he had to keep pushing forward. He wasn't going to let this courtroom drama define him. He was going to fight back, and he wasn't alone. As the opposing counsel continued her tirade, Musk glanced at his legal team. Claire Douglas, his lead attorney, sat to his left, her eyes sharp and focused. She had been with him through thick and thin, and Musk trusted her more than anyone else in the room. She wasn't intimidated by the pressure. She was ready for the battle that lay ahead. Suddenly, the courtroom doors swung open, and the judge entered, calling the proceedings to order. The room fell silent, and all eyes turned to the front as the judge took his seat. "Let's begin," the judge said with authority, his gavel striking the bench. Musk felt a familiar sense of determination rise within him. This trial was about to become something more than just a battle over a lawsuit. It was a battle for his future, his vision, and his reputation. The world was watching, and he couldn't afford to lose. But what the media didn't know, what the jury didn't know, was that Musk had a plan. He had always been a man of innovation, a man who saw challenges as opportunities. And in this courtroom, with all its mockery and skepticism, he was going to turn the tables completely. The opening statements were just the beginning. He was about to show the world that, once again, he could outthink and outmaneuver everyone. And with that, the trial began. Elon Musk had never been one to shy away from controversy. In fact, some would say it was an integral part of his persona. From his bold and often unpredictable statements on Twitter to his high-risk, high-reward business strategies, Musk had always been a lightning rod for both admiration and criticism. But this trial was different. It wasn't just a clash of ideas or philosophies. It was a legal battle that threatened to define his legacy. Musk's life had always been shaped by the tension between innovation and public perception. As a child, he had been a dreamer, constantly lost in books and ideas that others often dismissed as too far-fetched. But that same sense of curiosity and disregard for the status quo had propelled him into the stratosphere. Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, the companies he had founded were nothing short of revolutionary. And yet, for all his success, Musk had never quite been able to escape the storm of public opinion. His family had always been supportive, though they, too, had a complicated relationship with his fame. Musk's father, Errol, a wealthy South African engineer, had been a tough figure in his life, pushing him to achieve greatness but also instilling in him a sense of isolation. His mother, May, had always been more understanding, offering words of encouragement, even when his decisions seemed reckless to others. Musk's relationships with his partners and friends were equally complex. On one hand, there were the business alliances, people who had helped him build his empire, such as J.B. Straubel, Martin Eberhard, and Gwynne Shotwell. But Musk's intense drive often made it difficult for him to maintain long-lasting personal connections. He was always moving forward, always reaching for the next big thing. The price of that ambition was often strained friendships and an inability to relax into a sense of stability. Then there were his romantic relationships. Musk had been married 3 times, twice to actress Tallulah Riley and once to author Justine Musk. He had 5 children with Justine, but his marriages had ended in tumultuous ways, each leaving its mark on him. His relationship with the media, however, had been the most contentious of all. The press loved to vilify him, painting him as the mad genius or the eccentric billionaire who played by his own rules. They loved to focus on his mistakes, whether it was the funding-secured tweet that had led to a major SEC investigation or his sometimes erratic public statements. In this trial, the media was once again ready to turn Musk into a spectacle, but this time, there was something different in the air. The press had its sights set on a man who had been both villain and hero. They loved to tear him down, but what would happen if he didn't crumble under the pressure? What if he turned it all around, not just for himself but for everyone who believed in him? Musk took a deep breath as he sat in the courtroom, the weight of his past pressing on his shoulders. He had built his empire with grit and innovation, but the path to greatness had never been easy. He had been called reckless, unprofessional, even a mad scientist at times. But deep down, Musk knew that all the setbacks, all the mockery, had only made him stronger. Every public failure had been a lesson, and every ridicule had only sharpened his resolve. Looking across the room, he saw Sullivan, the opposing counsel, who was still riding the momentum of her opening statement. Her words echoed in his mind, "A man who thinks he can do no wrong." Musk smiled to himself. If only they knew the full story. If only they knew the battles he'd fought to get here, the moments of doubt that had threatened to derail everything. But that was the thing about Elon Musk. He never let doubt win. And he wasn't about to start now. The room began to settle, the energy shifting as the trial continued. Musk knew the next phase was critical. He would have to face down the media's mockery and the legal onslaught, but he wasn't going to do it with anger or defensiveness. He would do it with strategy. And more than anything, he was determined to show the world that he was still the same person who had changed the world with his ideas, no matter how much they tried to tear him down. The trial had barely begun, but already the tension in the courtroom was palpable. Elon Musk sat, his hands folded tightly in his lap, trying to maintain his composure despite the rising storm around him. Erica Sullivan, the opposing lawyer, was relentless. Her every word seemed designed to push Musk into a corner, to make him appear as reckless and irresponsible as she had painted him in her opening statement. The jury watched with rapt attention, absorbing every word. "Mr. Musk," Sullivan called out, her voice dripping with sarcasm, "it seems you've made a habit of running your companies like a circus. I suppose that's what happens when you give an untrained man the keys to the kingdom, huh?" The room erupted in muffled laughter. Musk remained still, his eyes fixed on the table before him. He knew Sullivan's tactic, to mock him, to make him seem like an outsider in his own industry. But he wasn't about to let her get under his skin. Instead, he focused on his strategy. Claire Douglas, his lead attorney, had told him not to respond to the mockery. Instead, they would build their case slowly, piece by piece, until the truth became undeniable. Sullivan continued her barrage of questions, attempting to provoke Musk into reacting. You've made billions off of your companies, but your decisions have caused chaos, haven't they? Tesla's stock crashing, SpaceX's failures, not to mention the countless scandals that seem to follow you wherever you go. Would you agree that your behavior has been erratic at best? The jury exchanged glances, and Musk could feel their eyes on him. He had been down this road before. They wanted to see him stumble, to admit fault, to show weakness. But that wasn't going to happen. Not today. Mr. Musk, Sullivan pressed, can you honestly say that your actions have always been in the best interest of your employees, your investors, and the public? Musk's heart rate increased ever so slightly, but his outward demeanor remained calm. He knew what was coming next. The mockery was about to escalate. Just as Sullivan was about to ask another question, Claire Douglas stood up. The room went silent as Claire, with her calm but authoritative presence, addressed the judge. Your Honor, Claire began, her voice steady, I request that we focus on the facts. This trial is not about Mr. Musk's personal life, nor is it a forum for the opposing counsel to attack his character. We are here to discuss a matter of legal principle, nothing more. Sullivan's face tightened, but she quickly regained her composure, nodding toward the judge. The judge, a no-nonsense figure with glasses perched at the end of his nose, leaned forward. Ms. Sullivan, let's keep the questions relevant to the case at hand, he said, his voice authoritative. Personal attacks won't be tolerated. Sullivan's smirk faltered for just a second before she returned to her strategy, but the damage had been done. The jury, who had been entertained by her sharp tongue, now shifted their attention toward the more measured, professional response of Musk's team. Musk leaned back in his chair, his mind working overtime. Claire had set the tone for the rest of the trial. This was going to be a battle of strategy, not just words. And Musk knew that he couldn't just wait for the right moment. He needed to take control. It was time to fight back, but with his own weapon, the truth. As the days wore on, Sullivan tried every trick in the book to discredit Musk. She relentlessly dug into his social media history, bringing up old tweets that had caused controversies in the past. She even called witnesses to the stand, people who had once worked with Musk and had now turned against him. Each witness had a story, a criticism, and an accusation, all meant to paint Musk as an irresponsible leader. But Musk wasn't rattled. He had heard it all before, and he had learned how to turn the tables when the world seemed ready to pounce. He knew that this was just the beginning. As the trial dragged on, Musk remained confident, waiting for the perfect opportunity to reveal the flaw in Sullivan's case, the Achilles heel that would shatter her argument. One afternoon, as the trial entered its second week, Musk received a message from Claire that would set the stage for his comeback. We found something. It's time. The message was brief, but its implications were immense. Musk's pulse quickened as he read the words again. Claire had uncovered a discrepancy in the evidence Sullivan had presented. It was subtle, but it was enough to turn the tide of the case. Musk knew that the next phase of the trial would be crucial. The tension had reached its peak, and Sullivan's mockery had begun to backfire. The jury had started to question the strength of her case. Musk's legal team was preparing to launch their counterattack, and it would hit harder than anyone expected. He was about to show them just how powerful he could be when cornered. The tables were about to turn, and the world would soon see that Elon Musk wasn't a man to be mocked. Not anymore. The tension in the courtroom was reaching a boiling point. For days now, Erica Sullivan had attacked Elon Musk with relentless precision, using every possible angle to portray him as reckless and out of control. But Musk had remained calm, his eyes always on the bigger picture. And now, with a single, well-timed move, his lead attorney Claire Douglas was about to make a move that would change everything. Sullivan was getting comfortable in her role as the accuser, as if she had already won. Her jabs were sharper, her tone more mocking. She had been relentless in attempting to break Musk's composure, but now, it was time for her to face a different challenge. She wouldn't be able to see it coming. It started quietly. Claire stood up to address the judge, her usual composed demeanor cutting through the tension in the room like a blade. Your Honor, I request that we revisit Exhibit A, Claire said firmly, her eyes locking with Sullivan for a moment. There's something in the evidence that I believe has been overlooked. The room fell silent. Sullivan froze, momentarily caught off guard. For a brief moment, it seemed as though the courtroom itself held its breath, waiting for what Claire would do next. Exhibit A was a series of financial records that Sullivan had used to paint Musk as a businessman driven solely by self-interest. It seemed damning on the surface, but Claire had studied these documents meticulously, and she was about to pull out a detail no one had expected. The judge nodded, and Claire approached the evidence table. She motioned for a court officer to assist in pulling up a specific set of numbers on the monitor for the jury to see. Claire's hand rested on the podium as she addressed the jury. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," she began, her voice steady and confident, "I want you to focus on the dates of these financial statements. Specifically, the transactions related to the acquisition of SolarCity, a move that was so heavily criticized, but ultimately became one of the most pivotal moments in Tesla's history. If you look closely, you'll see that these records show an entirely different story than the one presented by the opposing counsel." Sullivan shifted in her seat, her expression tightening. She had not anticipated this. Claire continued, "What you're seeing here is proof that Mr. Musk was not the reckless, irresponsible businessman that he has been painted as. Rather, the acquisition of SolarCity was part of a carefully planned strategy to ensure the survival and success of both companies. If you look closer at these timestamps, you'll see that the decision was made with full transparency and with the consideration of his investors and stakeholders. The timing is everything. This wasn't impulsiveness, it was foresight." She paused for a moment, letting the weight of her words sink in. The jury's attention was now fully captured. They had been so focused on Musk's failures, so absorbed in the narrative of his fallibility, that they hadn't considered this other side of the story. "I would also like to point out," Claire added, "that Sullivan's case hinges on presenting these decisions as chaotic and without thought, but the evidence clearly suggests that Mr. Musk had a vision that, despite the criticisms, led to the success of both Tesla and SolarCity. And now we're seeing that very vision bear fruit, as Tesla's renewable energy systems have grown exponentially." Sullivan looked like she had been punched in the gut. Her entire strategy had relied on presenting Musk as someone who had made decisions in a vacuum, without care for the long-term consequences. But Claire had just shattered that argument with a single revelation. The judge, too, seemed to recognize the shift in the air. He looked toward Sullivan with an expression of measured concern, then back at Claire. "Ms. Sullivan, would you like to respond?" the judge asked. For the first time since the trial began, Sullivan hesitated. The fire she had shown earlier seemed to flicker out as Claire's careful dismantling of her case left her no room to maneuver. The power dynamic in the room had shifted dramatically. Sullivan cleared her throat, regaining some of her composure. "Your Honor, we'll need to review this new evidence before we can respond properly." The judge nodded, signaling a brief recess. As the lawyers filed out of the courtroom, the air was thick with tension. Musk exchanged a quick glance with Claire. He could feel it. This was the moment they had been waiting for. Once outside the courtroom, Musk's heart raced. He knew they had just turned the tide of the trial, but he also knew that the battle wasn't over yet. He still had to deal with the fallout of the media's portrayal of him, and he knew Sullivan would have something else up her sleeve. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. They had managed to outsmart her in the most unexpected way, by turning the tables with sheer legal brilliance. The courtroom was silent as the recess ended. When Elon Musk returned, his focus had sharpened. The tide of the trial had turned in his favor, but the real test was just beginning. Sullivan, shaken but not defeated, had been given time to regroup. He knew she would come back even harder, looking for any crack in their defense. But Musk wasn't worried anymore. He was about to show the jury and the world something that would leave a lasting impression. He would not only prove that he was in control of his business decisions, but he would also reveal a side of himself that no one had expected. As the judge called the trial back into session, the room settled into an expectant hush. Musk could feel the intensity in the air. This was no longer just a battle of legalities. This was about his legacy, his vision for the future. It was about the very idea that he had fought for years to bring to life. A future powered by renewable energy, a society driven by exploration and technological progress. Sullivan wasted no time in launching her next attack. Mr. Musk, she began, her voice cool and confident, you've had your moment with the facts, but now I want to address something more personal. You see, we're not just here to talk about business decisions. We're here because of your inability to take responsibility for the consequences of those decisions. You've said yourself that the success of your companies is all thanks to you, your vision, your genius. But what happens when your genius doesn't work out? What happens when it fails? Because, Mr. Musk, failure is all around you. Sullivan's eyes flashed with a glimmer of triumph. She had made it personal now. The room grew heavy with the weight of her words, and Musk could see the jury's eyes flicker toward him, searching for any sign of weakness. But this was where Musk excelled, under pressure. He had built his empire on the foundation of risk and innovation, but also resilience. Every failure, every setback had taught him something new. And it was in moments like these that he realized how far he had come. Without hesitation, Musk rose from his seat. The room seemed to hold its breath as he stood tall, his eyes locked on Sullivan. His voice was calm, but it carried a weight that resonated deeply in the room. Miss Sullivan, Musk said, his words measured but firm, you've misunderstood me. I'm not here to defend every decision I've made. I'm here because I believe in something bigger than myself. I believe in the future. A future where humanity is not bound to this planet. A future where we've solved the energy crisis, where we can explore the stars. A future where failure is not something to be ashamed of, but something we learn from. And I will not let you reduce everything I've built to a few bad tweets or a couple of setbacks. I've made mistakes, but I've learned from them, and I've kept moving forward. The courtroom was still. Even Sullivan, who had been so aggressive in her approach, was momentarily caught off guard. Musk continued, his voice softening slightly, but his resolve unwavering. I've lost friends over the years, and I've sacrificed more than most people will ever understand. I've been knocked down more times than I can count, but I've never stopped. And the reason I never stopped is simple. I refuse to let the world's doubts define me. I refuse to let people like you, who would rather mock than understand, tear down what I've worked for. I'm not perfect, but I am committed. And that's what makes the difference. The jury exchanged glances. There was a palpable shift in the room. Musk's words had cut through the cynicism, offering something deeper. A glimpse of the man behind the headlines. The emotional weight of his statement was undeniable. This was not just a fight for a company or for money. This was a fight for something larger, something that people could believe in. Sullivan's smug expression faltered. For the first time in the trial, her confidence wavered. She had underestimated Musk's ability to not only defend his actions, but to tap into something raw and authentic. She had tried to portray him as a man driven by ego and blind ambition, but Musk had shown a different side of himself, one that was deeply invested in the future of humanity. There was a long silence before the judge spoke, breaking the tension in the room. Mr. Musk, you may return to your seat, he said, his voice neutral but thoughtful. Musk sat down slowly, the weight of his words still hanging in the air. He glanced briefly at Claire, who gave him a small nod of approval. The room had shifted. The jury had seen something they weren't expecting. Vulnerability, authenticity, and most importantly, a conviction that went beyond financial gain. Sullivan, now visibly flustered, took her seat, her previous confidence shattered. She had underestimated Musk, but what was worse for her? She had underestimated the power of his truth. As the trial progressed into its final phase, it was clear to everyone present that Musk was no longer just defending himself in a legal battle. He had redefined the narrative. What started as a story about a billionaire accused of mismanagement was now a story about vision, resilience, and the pursuit of a future that might just change the world. Elon Musk sat back in his chair, feeling the weight of the moment. His words had struck a chord. The jury, once filled with skepticism and doubt, had now seen a different side of him, something beyond the public persona. His personal testimony had pierced through the legal rhetoric and media narratives, offering a raw, unfiltered glimpse into his convictions. He had reclaimed his narrative, and with it, a new sense of confidence surged through him. But the battle wasn't over. It was now time for the final act in this high-stakes legal drama. As the trial entered its final days, Musk's legal team was ready for the last strategic maneuver. Claire Douglas had been working tirelessly behind the scenes, gathering information and preparing a stunning revelation. The evidence she had uncovered during the recess, hidden in plain sight, was about to become the centerpiece of Musk's defense, and it would completely upend the case that Sullivan had spent so much time building. Musk had spent the last few days reflecting on everything that had led him to this point. He thought about the early days of Tesla, how people had mocked him then too. They said electric cars would never be practical. They said SpaceX was too ambitious, that it was impossible for a private company to compete with NASA. He'd faced countless failures along the way, but each one had only fueled his resolve. And now, in the courtroom, he was fighting for his legacy, for his companies, and for the very future of the world he envisioned. The judge called for order as Claire stood up, signaling the final phase of the trial. She was calm, collected, and confident. Her earlier success in dismantling Sullivan's case had given her an aura of quiet dominance. This was it, the moment she and Musk had been waiting for. Your Honor, we have one final piece of evidence that we believe will conclusively demonstrate the merit of Mr. Musk's actions, Claire began. Her voice rang through the courtroom, steady and unyielding. She held up a folder containing the key document, and the entire room went silent in anticipation. She turned to face the jury. I would like to introduce Exhibit Z, Claire continued. This document, which has been omitted from the evidence presented by the opposing counsel, is a comprehensive internal report from SpaceX, dated several weeks before the launch failure that has been used to cast doubt on Mr. Musk's leadership. What this report shows, however, is that the decision to proceed with the launch was a calculated risk made with full awareness of the potential challenges, and the acknowledgement that failure was a possibility. But most importantly, this report demonstrates that the risk was taken with the full backing of SpaceX's leadership team and major investors. Sullivan's face went pale. She had clearly not anticipated this move. She had relied on the assumption that Musk had acted unilaterally, without the input or approval of his team. But now, Claire had exposed that not only had Musk acted within the confines of due diligence, but he had made the decision with the full support of those who were closest to the project. The report clearly outlines the rigorous safety protocols followed, the extensive testing completed, and the calculated nature of the risk, Claire continued. This wasn't an impulsive decision. It was a decision made with foresight and an understanding of the stakes, not only for SpaceX but for the future of private space exploration. And while the failure was unfortunate, it does not diminish Mr. Musk's responsibility as a leader. Instead, it highlights the reality of innovation, that success is built on the willingness to take risks, to challenge the boundaries of what's possible. The jury seemed to lean in, their interest piqued. Musk's heart raced, but it wasn't from fear. It was from the realization that the final domino had fallen. They had him cornered, had mocked him, tried to tear him down with every tactic in their arsenal. But now, with a single stroke, Claire had exposed the truth. He wasn't reckless. He wasn't a madman. He was a visionary. A leader who dared to fail, who dared to push the world forward. Sullivan, flustered, attempted to interject. "Objection, Your Honor," she called, but the judge raised a hand, silencing her. "Ms. Sullivan," the judge said firmly, "you've had ample opportunity to present your case. The evidence now speaks for itself. We will continue." Sullivan, her face flushed with frustration, could do little but sit back in her seat. The tables had turned, and there was no room left for her to maneuver. Musk's legal team had dismantled her case piece by piece, and now, the final blow had landed. Musk allowed himself a small, almost imperceptible smile. This had been the fight of his life, but he knew he had just won. He had not only defended his business decisions, but had also shown the jury the essence of who he was. He had outsmarted Sullivan at every turn and turned the courtroom into a stage for his ultimate defense, a commitment to innovation, risk, and the relentless pursuit of progress. As the judge prepared to dismiss the jury for deliberation, Musk looked over at Claire, who gave him a brief nod. They had done it. They had turned the impossible into something not only plausible but irrefutable. The room was thick with tension as the jury filed back into the courtroom. The trial had stretched over weeks, each day a new challenge, a new twist in the ongoing drama. But now, the final chapter of this legal battle was unfolding before them. Elon Musk sat still, his hands clasped in front of him, his eyes focused, but his mind racing. His legal team had done their job, the final gambit had been played, and now the only thing left was the jury's decision. He could feel the weight of their gaze as they entered the room. The jury had been attentive, but how would they respond? Would they believe the narrative that Sullivan had built, or had Claire Douglas' calculated revelations been enough to turn the tide? As the foreperson of the jury stood, Musk's heart pounded in his chest. He hadn't allowed himself to hope too much, not after the media circus and the relentless attacks on his character. But deep down, he believed in the integrity of the truth that had been laid bare during the trial. Now, all that remained was the final judgment. The judge, who had presided over the trial with a firm yet fair hand, motioned for the jury to deliver its verdict. The foreperson cleared his throat, unfolding the piece of paper before speaking the words that would change everything. "We, the jury, find in favor of the defendant, Mr. Elon Musk." The words hung in the air like a weight lifted off of Musk's shoulders. For a moment, he couldn't quite process it. The tension that had held him in place for so long melted away, replaced by a flood of relief, but also a deep sense of gratitude. The victory wasn't just legal, it was personal. He had faced the most intense scrutiny of his life, and had come out on the other side stronger. Sullivan's face twisted into a mask of disbelief. She had fought so hard, but it had all unraveled in the final moments. Musk remained still, his expression calm. He didn't gloat. He didn't even smile. He simply exhaled, his gaze fixed on the jury, who were now standing up, their eyes not on him, but on the evidence that had been laid before them. "Thank you, Your Honor," Musk said quietly, his voice barely audible. He wasn't sure whether he was speaking to the judge, the jury, or himself. This wasn't just a legal victory, it was a turning point in his life. The judge gave a slight nod, acknowledging the verdict. "Mr. Musk, this court is adjourned. You are free to go." As the court session ended and the audience began to file out, Musk took a moment to absorb the magnitude of what had just occurred. It wasn't just about clearing his name. It was about something much more important, the affirmation of his principles. The world had tried to tear him down, tried to reduce his legacy to nothing more than headlines and ridicule. But today, the truth had won. The truth of his vision, his resilience, and his refusal to give up had been validated in the most public way possible. Musk walked out of the courtroom with his legal team, Claire Douglas at his side. They exchanged a brief glance, and though neither of them spoke, there was a shared understanding between them. They had won, but more than that, they had done so on their own terms. Claire, always the professional, was the first to speak. "It's over," she said, offering him a small but sincere smile. "But the real work is just beginning." Musk nodded, appreciating her understatement. This trial was a chapter in a much larger story. He had come through it, but the world would never stop questioning him. That was part of the price he had to pay for pushing the boundaries of possibility. But now, the world had seen his truth, and in that, Musk found something far more valuable than any legal victory: the unwavering belief in his own path. Outside the courthouse, the media were waiting. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, but Musk didn't pause. He didn't need to make some grand statement to the world. His victory had already been won. Not in the courtroom, but in the hearts and minds of those who believed in the future he was working to create. He was already moving forward, as he always did. The journey would continue. The next challenge was always just around the corner, but Musk had learned that it wasn't the challenges that defined him. It was his willingness to keep going, to keep pushing boundaries, to keep believing. The dust had settled in the courtroom, but for Elon Musk, the trial's end was only the beginning of a new chapter. The verdict had been delivered, but the battle he had just fought would have long-lasting effects, both in his personal life and in the public eye. Walking away from the courthouse, Musk was already shifting his focus. The legal victory was sweet, but he knew that the true challenges lay ahead. The media coverage exploded in the wake of the verdict. Headlines ranging from "Musk's legal victory shocks the court" to "The real Elon Musk revealed in courtroom showdown" flooded every news outlet. The public, long fascinated by his boldness and larger-than-life persona, now had another reason to scrutinize him. Some would call it a redemption story, others a PR stunt. But Musk was used to being misunderstood. This was nothing new. As Musk returned to his offices, the atmosphere was different. There was a sense of quiet triumph, but also of the pressure that came with it. Musk didn't let the victory go to his head. He understood that every triumph only meant more attention, more expectations, more people ready to question his every move. Claire Douglas, who had been instrumental in navigating the twists and turns of the trial, had already moved on to the next case, but she took a moment to meet with Musk privately. They stood together in his office, looking out over the bustling Tesla campus, a symbol of the empire Musk had built. "Congratulations," Claire said, her voice calm but sincere. "This was a hard-fought win. You've earned it." Musk nodded, but his expression was far from celebratory. "It's just the beginning, Claire. The headlines will die down eventually, but people will still be watching. I can't afford to be complacent." Claire smiled knowingly. She had worked with Musk long enough to understand that he wasn't someone who rested on his laurels. Every victory, no matter how significant, was just another step toward the next challenge. "That's what makes you who you are," she said. Musk's thoughts drifted. The trial had been draining, and while he had come out victorious, he couldn't shake the sense that there was something bigger on the horizon. The world was changing, and the technologies he was working on were not only pushing the boundaries of space and energy, but were also positioning him as the focal point of a new era in innovation. But with great innovation came great responsibility. The reality of his position started to sink in. He had always been seen as a disruptor, someone who could take on any challenge, no matter how impossible. But that came with consequences. There were those who had been waiting for him to fail, just as there were those who placed their hopes in his success. Musk understood the weight of being a public figure. His decisions impacted not only the future of his companies, but also the world's collective vision for what the future could be. Meanwhile, the media frenzy continued to intensify. Interviews, appearances, and requests for comment flooded Musk's schedule. Despite the victory, the attacks on his character did not stop. They had evolved into something more complex. His trial had made him a symbol, a figure both revered and reviled. Some called him a genius, others a reckless billionaire. But what few understood was that Musk had always been more than the sum of his failures or successes. He was driven by a singular vision, a vision that often defied conventional understanding. As he sat in his office, surrounded by reports on the progress of SpaceX's Mars missions and Tesla's new advancements in sustainable energy, Musk thought about what was next. He was never one to rest. His team at Tesla had already made strides in autonomous driving technology, and SpaceX had recently launched the most successful Falcon mission to date. But these were just milestones. What was truly on the horizon was even bigger. He was on the verge of something world-changing, a plan that, if successful, would reshape the way humanity thought about space exploration, renewable energy, and artificial intelligence. Musk wasn't in it for the accolades or the recognition. He was in it because he believed that humanity could do more, that the Earth's future depended on taking risks and dreaming beyond what seemed possible. But the road ahead wasn't going to be easy. The same legal battles, controversies, and media attacks would follow him wherever he went. He had no illusions about the pressures he faced. What he had learned through the trial was that no matter how hard he fought to prove himself, there would always be those waiting to knock him down. But he also learned something else, that he could never stop moving forward. He could never stop innovating. He could never stop dreaming. In the days following the trial, Musk made his next big announcement. It wasn't just a product launch or a new partnership. It was something bigger. He unveiled his vision for a multi-planetary future, an ambitious plan to build a self-sustaining city on Mars. It wasn't just a publicity stunt. It was the culmination of years of research and development, a plan that would require billions of dollars, countless hours of work, and the cooperation of humanity's best minds. It was a vision that would push the limits of human capability, just as everything he had done before had done. The announcement sent shockwaves through the world. Some people called it impossible. Some called it madness. But for those who truly understood Musk, they saw it as yet another step in a journey that had only just begun. To him, the path was clear. He wasn't just fighting to win court cases or quiet his critics. He was fighting for a future where humanity could thrive, not just on Earth, but across the stars. As the weeks passed, the fallout from Musk's legal victory began to spread in unexpected ways. The media buzz had not died down. In fact, it had only intensified. His courtroom showdown, followed by the unveiling of his ambitious Mars plans, had captured the world's attention in a way few things ever could. Musk, once considered an enigmatic billionaire with a penchant for controversy, had now become a symbol of resilience. The courtroom battle that many thought would be his downfall had only cemented his place in the spotlight. But as Musk had learned time and time again, attention brought both opportunity and scrutiny in equal measure. The ripple effect of his victory stretched beyond the courtroom. For some, Musk's triumph was a reminder of the power of persistence. It was a story that resonated with entrepreneurs, innovators, and dreamers everywhere. It didn't matter if you were trying to build a startup, launch a revolutionary product, or disrupt an entire industry. What mattered was the ability to keep going, even when the odds were stacked against you. For others, particularly his critics, Musk's victory only made him a more formidable adversary. Back at Tesla, the energy around the company had shifted. While Musk had always been known for his ambitious goals, his legal battle had showcased a new side of his character. He was no longer just the guy who made electric cars cool. He was a leader who had fought and won in the face of overwhelming opposition. The same team that had been there through the ups and downs of Tesla's rise to power now found themselves even more committed to the mission, inspired by their leader's determination. But Musk wasn't taking his foot off the gas. The legal victory, while monumental, was just one moment in the ongoing journey. He knew better than anyone that the future of Tesla, SpaceX, and his other ventures hinged on constant innovation, not past achievements. He had bigger plans that would make even his Mars vision seem small in comparison. One of the first things Musk did after the trial was take a step back to evaluate the strategic direction of his companies. Tesla's production capacity was ramping up, and he saw the market moving towards sustainable energy solutions faster than ever before. The world was beginning to realize that the future of transportation, energy, and technology was intrinsically linked to the choices made today. His company wasn't just building electric cars, it was shaping a world where renewable energy was not only possible, but the only way forward. Musk's attention also turned to SpaceX. The Mars plan was audacious, but it was more than just a lofty dream. It was a call to action for humanity itself. Musk had always believed that space exploration wasn't just a scientific endeavor, it was humanity's ultimate survival strategy. As Earth's resources dwindled and climate change continued to threaten the planet, Musk saw Mars as not just a new frontier, but a backup plan for civilization. For Musk, the legal battle had been a momentary distraction from these far-reaching ambitions. Yet, there was no denying the significance of the trial's aftermath. People had begun to see him in a new light, not as a reckless businessman or an egotistical billionaire, but as someone who genuinely believed in the potential for a better future. In a world where many felt disillusioned, Musk had managed to reinvigorate the hope of what was possible, both on Earth and beyond. But not everyone saw Musk's victory as a triumph. His critics, though momentarily silenced by the jury's decision, were already regrouping. Some media outlets began to paint the trial's outcome as nothing more than a well-crafted PR move. They claimed that Musk had used his courtroom victory to further his own narrative, turning a legal battle into a marketing opportunity. Even in the face of overwhelming evidence, the skepticism surrounding Musk's ventures remained ever-present. One particular backlash came from environmental groups that were critical of Musk's focus on space exploration, arguing that his efforts could divert critical resources away from more pressing issues on Earth. They painted Musk as a man obsessed with escaping his problems, rather than solving them. "Why focus on Mars when we can't even take care of the planet we have?" became a common refrain. Musk took the criticism in stride. He had long been accustomed to the mixed reactions to his work, knowing that the more ambitious his goals, the more vocal the opposition would be. But he also knew that the greatest achievements had always been met with resistance. The path to progress was never easy, and he wasn't about to let the criticisms derail him. To counterbalance the backlash, Musk began to emphasize the interconnectedness of his work. Space exploration, he explained, was not a distraction from solving Earth's problems. It was part of the solution. By pushing the boundaries of what was possible, SpaceX's advancements could lead to technologies that would benefit life on Earth. The innovations that came out of the space program could have far-reaching implications, from renewable energy technologies to breakthroughs in medicine and materials science. The more Musk spoke about the bigger picture, the more he realized how much his vision had grown. What had once been a dream to colonize Mars had become something much larger. The drive to ensure humanity's long-term survival and the push to accelerate technological advancements that could heal the planet. Musk wasn't just a businessman anymore. He was a philosopher, a futurist, a man with a grand vision for a new world. And despite the challenges, he was determined to see it through. As he looked out over the horizon from his office, Musk couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude. The world may have mocked him, doubted him, and tried to tear him down, but in the end, he had proven that the impossible was possible. The ripple effect of that victory would continue to reverberate for years to come. And for Elon Musk, that was only the beginning. The weeks following the verdict were a whirlwind for Elon Musk. On the surface, things seemed calm. Tesla's stock price had surged following his courtroom victory, and SpaceX was on the cusp of launching another successful mission. But Musk wasn't satisfied with simply staying the course. The legal battle had been a wake-up call, reminding him that no matter how much he achieved, there would always be new challenges, new frontiers to explore, both in business and in life. For Musk, the greatest frontier wasn't the next Tesla model or the next Falcon rocket launch. It was the uncharted territory of human possibility. His victory in court had done more than clear his name. It had reaffirmed his belief in the power of disruption. The media, his critics, and the public at large had spent years questioning his every move. And yet, despite their doubts, Musk had come out on top, with a clearer vision of what the future could look like. Now, it was time to act on that vision. Musk had always believed in the importance of taking risks, but the trial had given him a new understanding of what that truly meant. He had risked everything to defend his reputation, his businesses, and his vision for the future. But now, he realized, the risks that really mattered weren't the ones tied to courtrooms or media scandals. They were the ones that would change the world forever. The next steps would be the most ambitious ones yet. Musk's attention returned to SpaceX. The Mars project, once a distant dream, was quickly becoming a reality. But it wasn't just about getting to Mars, it was about building a sustainable future there. His goal wasn't just to send humans to Mars for short visits or scientific exploration. It was to establish a permanent presence, to create a thriving civilization on another planet. This was no small task, and Musk knew it would require everything he had, both intellectually and emotionally. In the months following the trial, Musk convened a series of meetings with his top engineers and scientists at SpaceX. They began discussing the finer details of the Mars colonization plan, how they would build the infrastructure necessary to support human life on Mars, how they would deal with the challenges of creating a self-sustaining ecosystem, and what kind of resources they would need to make the dream a reality. It was a daunting challenge, but it was also exhilarating. Musk had always thrived on the edge of the impossible, and now, with the legal battle behind him, he was fully committed to pushing the limits of what humanity could achieve. His drive to create a multi-planetary civilization was no longer just a passion project, it was a necessity. The future of humanity, he believed, depended on it. But Musk wasn't just focused on SpaceX. Tesla, too, was at a turning point. With the success of the Model S, Model 3, and the upcoming Cybertruck, Tesla had secured its place as a leader in the electric vehicle market. But Musk wasn't satisfied with simply being the best in one industry. He saw Tesla's mission as part of something much larger, transforming the world's energy infrastructure to be entirely sustainable. He was determined to take Tesla's technology beyond the roads and into homes, offices, and entire cities. As part of this vision, Musk pushed for the development of Tesla's solar technology and energy storage systems. He knew that to achieve true sustainability, the world would need more than just electric vehicles. It would need a complete overhaul of how energy was produced, stored, and consumed. He envisioned a future where Tesla's solar panels powered homes and businesses, where electric vehicles were not only the standard but were integrated into a larger ecosystem of renewable energy. But as always, Musk's ambition came with its challenges. He was constantly under pressure from investors, regulators, and the media. People were watching him closely, waiting for the next big mistake, the next failure. Musk was aware of this, but he also knew that in order to change the world, he had to keep moving forward, no matter the obstacles. One of the biggest hurdles was the skepticism surrounding his Mars vision. Critics continued to question whether it was practical, whether it was a distraction from more immediate problems on Earth. Some argued that the resources needed to make a Mars colony viable could be better spent addressing the planet's current challenges, from climate change to poverty. Musk, however, remained undeterred. To him, the two goals were not mutually exclusive. The advancements made in space exploration and technology would, in the long run, benefit Earth in ways that couldn't be predicted. Whether it was the development of new energy solutions, advancements in AI, or breakthroughs in material science, the innovations that SpaceX and Tesla were creating could have a far-reaching impact. But Musk knew that convincing the world would take more than just words. It would take action. He knew that he needed to keep proving that his vision was more than just a dream. And to do that, he would have to continue making bold moves. One of the first bold moves he made after the trial was a public speech at a tech conference, where he laid out his vision for the future of humanity. He spoke passionately about the need to push the boundaries of human knowledge, to make life multiplanetary, and to fight for the survival of the species by investing in technology that would change the world. His words were met with both admiration and criticism. But Musk wasn't looking for applause. He was looking for results. As he left the stage, Musk felt a renewed sense of purpose. The trial had taught him something important. No matter how much success he had, there would always be people who doubted him. But that didn't matter. What mattered was the work he was doing and the impact it would have on the world. As Elon Musk dove deeper into his projects, from SpaceX's Mars ambitions to Tesla's pursuit of global energy sustainability, a new wave of skepticism began to rise. The media, now more accustomed to his boundary-pushing antics, began to ask sharper questions. Critics were no longer content with simply questioning his ideas. They were challenging the very core of his plans. The courtroom drama was far behind him, but the ripples it created were still being felt. His legal victory had silenced many of his critics, but others were more determined than ever to bring his grand visions down to Earth. To some, Musk's ambition for Mars was laughable, an expensive fantasy that distracted from the pressing issues of climate change, inequality, and political strife. For them, the idea of investing billions of dollars to send humans to Mars while so many problems were left unsolved on Earth seemed not only impractical but irresponsible. Elon, of course, had expected this. He had grown accustomed to critics. From the early days of Tesla, when people doubted whether electric vehicles could ever be mainstream, to his early SpaceX missions that were initially laughed off as pipe dreams, he had always been underestimated. But Musk's resilience had been his greatest asset. Each challenge only fueled his determination to prove them wrong. He found himself at a crossroads. He knew the future of humanity depended on reaching beyond Earth, but how could he convince the world to support him? How could he prove that Mars wasn't just an escape route, but the next step for mankind? His first course of action was to amplify his communication, particularly by sharing the broader implications of his projects. Mars wasn't just about leaving Earth behind. It was about ensuring humanity's survival. He often referred to his vision as Plan B for the species, a safeguard against the kinds of existential risks, climate change, asteroid impacts, overpopulation, that could one day threaten life on Earth. But he also knew he needed to continue making tangible progress to show that his ideas weren't just lofty talk. Musk had already achieved groundbreaking milestones with SpaceX and Tesla, but it was time to make even bigger moves. Musk had a strategy for dealing with his critics. He would challenge them. Rather than simply defend his ideas, he would take the initiative and force the conversation. One afternoon, as he prepared for an upcoming press conference, Musk sent out a tweet that would send shockwaves through both the tech and media industries. If Mars is just a fantasy, then I challenge you to build a better future here on Earth. But if you're ready to leave the planet, let's get started. The tweet went viral within minutes. Critics, analysts, and his loyal followers all weighed in, each with their own take. The backlash came swiftly. Some called him arrogant, while others saw it as a declaration of war on traditional thinking. But for Musk, the message was clear. If the world wasn't ready to embrace the kind of bold change necessary to save humanity, then maybe it was time to find a different way forward. The press conference that followed the tweet was a spectacle. The world watched as Musk laid out the next phase of SpaceX's mission, including plans for the development of Starship, the rocket designed to transport humans to Mars. He emphasized that the technology SpaceX was building wasn't just for Mars. It could change the course of human exploration, resource management, and even intercontinental travel. In essence, he was making the case that Mars was the ultimate test, but the technology he was building could fundamentally alter life on Earth as well. Yet, even in the face of Musk's confident pitch, there were dissenters in the room. A journalist raised a pointed question. You've said that humanity needs to become a multi-planetary species. But what about the issues we're facing here? Climate change, poverty, political instability. How can we justify spending billions of dollars on space travel when those problems are right in front of us? Musk didn't flinch. He'd heard this line of questioning countless times before. He responded with his usual mix of logic and conviction. Space is not an escape, he said, his voice steady. It's a solution. We can't fix everything on Earth by ignoring the big picture. Mars will force us to innovate in ways that will benefit life on Earth. The technology we develop, the way we learn to live sustainably, the energy systems we create, all of that can and will come back to benefit the planet. The room was silent for a moment as the weight of his words sank in. Musk continued, the planet needs us to take risks. The future needs us to be bold. If we wait until all the problems are solved, we might never act. But if we act now, we can solve them together. And Mars is just the beginning. As the press conference wrapped up, Musk's words lingered in the air. His critics were still skeptical, but his supporters rallied behind him. To many, Musk's statement had reframed the debate about space exploration. Mars was no longer just a luxury project for the wealthy. It was part of a much larger mission to secure the survival of humanity. Despite the public face he put on, Musk's internal struggle continued. He often found himself questioning the feasibility of his ambitious plans, especially as challenges mounted from every direction. Tesla faced pressure to ramp up production while dealing with increasing competition from both traditional automakers and newer, tech-focused rivals. SpaceX, meanwhile, had to contend with the high cost of space exploration, the pressure to deliver on Musk's bold promises, and the ever-present uncertainty of the regulatory environment. But what kept Musk going was his deep belief in the importance of what he was doing. He wasn't just working to make money or to cement his place in history. He was working to change the trajectory of civilization. Whether or not the world recognized it, he knew that humanity's future depended on the kind of risks he was willing to take. One night, as he sat in his office at SpaceX headquarters, Musk stared at the images of Mars projected on the wall. He imagined what it would be like to send the first human mission there. The harsh landscape, the distant red horizon, and the sense of human achievement that would come with taking the first steps on another world. It was a vision of the future, one that had come to define his life's work. But deep down, Musk understood that the road ahead would not be easy. There would be more obstacles, more critics, and more setbacks. But for him, that was part of the journey. The impossible was where he thrived. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Despite the mounting criticism and the pressures of his multi-billion-dollar ambitions, Elon Musk was never one to retreat from a challenge. Instead, he doubled down. He had made his mark in the electric vehicle and space industries, but now, with the world questioning his direction, he found an unexpected ally in a place he least expected, the corporate world. It was late one evening when Musk received an unexpected invitation, a meeting request from Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple. Over the years, the rivalry between Tesla and Apple had been simmering, particularly as both companies competed for dominance in electric vehicles and advanced technology. Musk had publicly criticized Apple on several occasions, calling it out for its lack of innovation in the electric vehicle space. In return, Apple had made no effort to mask its distaste for Musk's often controversial and unfiltered approach to business. But now, here was an opportunity for a meeting. "I don't know what this is about, but it's worth a shot," Musk muttered to himself as he picked up the phone and dialed into the scheduled video conference. Within seconds, Tim Cook's familiar face appeared on screen. "Good evening, Elon. Tim Cook greeted him with a calm smile. Thanks for taking the time. Musk, his usual intensity palpable, wasted no time. Let's get to it. Why are you reaching out? I'm guessing this isn't a social call? Cook chuckled lightly. Fair enough. I think you'll find it interesting. But first, let me say that I've been watching what you're doing with Tesla, and I have to admit, you've achieved things that many thought were impossible. You've changed the way the world thinks about electric vehicles, and I respect that. Musk raised an eyebrow. He wasn't used to compliments from his competitors, especially from someone like Cook. It made him wary, but he kept his guard up. I'm flattered, Musk responded, his voice a little more guarded. But what does this have to do with me? Cook leaned forward, his expression turning more serious. I'm reaching out because I think we might be able to help each other. Apple is shifting its focus towards sustainability in a way that could complement some of your future projects. We're looking at renewable energy solutions for both our products and our corporate operations. And I believe we could partner on some level to push both of our visions forward. Musk's mind raced. Apple was an unrivaled giant in the tech world, and the thought of aligning with such a company was both enticing and risky. But the more Cook explained, the more Musk realized that a partnership between Tesla and Apple could change the entire trajectory of the energy and tech industries. Apple's vast resources, combined with Tesla's groundbreaking work in electric vehicles and energy solutions, had the potential to create something transformative. We're both playing in the same sandbox now, Cook continued, but we're going at it from different angles. The world needs more integrated solutions. We can provide the hardware. You can provide the energy ecosystem. If we join forces, we could accelerate the transition to a sustainable future exponentially. Musk's skepticism lingered, but he couldn't ignore the possibilities. The idea of combining Apple's deep pocket of technological expertise with Tesla's renewable energy infrastructure was tantalizing. You're talking about solar energy and battery technology, right? Musk asked, trying to get a better grasp on Cook's proposition. We're already doing that with SolarCity and Powerwall, but I'm intrigued. What exactly are you suggesting? Cook nodded. We'd be interested in bringing your energy solutions into the fold of our products, integrating solar capabilities into Apple devices, for example, or creating renewable charging stations for the entire Apple ecosystem. Apple has always been about design and user experience, but if we want to truly lead in the future, we need to rethink the infrastructure. The world needs an integrated, seamless energy ecosystem, and we think Tesla could play a pivotal role in that. Musk sat back in his chair, absorbing the magnitude of the proposition. It was ambitious, audacious even, but Musk knew that nothing worth doing came without risk. And if there was one thing he thrived on, it was taking risks, especially when they held the potential to disrupt the world. I'll be honest, Tim, Musk said after a long pause, I've always respected Apple's ability to create seamless, user-friendly experiences. But this would be something huge. And not just in terms of technology. It could set the stage for the kind of societal shift I've been pushing for with Tesla and SpaceX. Cook smiled. Exactly. But we'd need to take this slowly, partner with the right teams, and ensure we're not overextending ourselves. However, if we're going to succeed at transforming the energy sector, we have to act now. The future is waiting. Musk thought about it. The implications of such a partnership were monumental. Together, Apple and Tesla could redefine not only transportation and energy, but also the entire way the world interacted with technology. And yet, Musk knew that such a partnership wouldn't come without its own set of challenges. Would Apple really be able to align itself with Tesla's mission-driven approach? And could they deliver on the grand promises being made? I'm in, Musk finally said, locking eyes with Cook. But we do this my way. No shortcuts. We aim for nothing less than changing the world. The announcement of the partnership between Tesla and Apple sent shockwaves throughout the tech and automotive industries. The news wasn't just about two powerful companies coming together. It was about the world's two most innovative brands merging their capabilities in an effort to solve some of humanity's most pressing problems. Musk's critics, who had once derided his lofty goals, suddenly found themselves with a new line of questioning. Could this collaboration actually work? For the first time in years, Musk felt the tide shifting. A small but significant portion of the media began to cover his ventures in a more favorable light. recognizing that Tesla's contributions to energy and transportation, along with the newfound partnership with Apple, were shaping a future no one had anticipated. Tesla's stock price soared once again, and SpaceX also saw increased interest from investors who viewed Musk's ability to unite disparate industries as a sign of his growing influence. But, as expected, the critics didn't remain silent for long. Many still insisted that Musk's grand vision was too far-fetched, even with Apple's involvement. Some felt that the promises Musk made, whether related to Mars or sustainability, were too ambitious to achieve in the near term. Musk, however, knew that every step forward, no matter how small, brought him closer to his goals. The partnership with Apple wasn't the end game. It was just another piece in the puzzle. Elon Musk stood at the helm of two of the most groundbreaking companies of the 21st century, Tesla and SpaceX. But as much as the world marveled at his ability to redefine entire industries, the road ahead wasn't as smooth as many believed. Even with the high-profile partnership with Apple, Musk found himself embroiled in what could be called the innovation war, a battle to maintain his lead in industries that were becoming increasingly competitive. It wasn't just about advancing technology, it was about survival. The partnership with Apple had given Musk a renewed sense of momentum, but it also heightened the stakes. Apple wasn't the only company taking aim at the electric vehicle and clean energy market. Rivals like Rivian, Lucid Motors, and traditional automakers like General Motors and Ford were stepping up their electric vehicle efforts in a way that had never been seen before. Some were even launching their own electric vehicle models, and they were armed with the kind of resources that only decades of legacy experience could provide. Meanwhile, SpaceX was facing challenges of its own. The race to explore space was heating up with new players like Blue Origin, founded by Jeff Bezos, and Virgin Galactic, which was led by Sir Richard Branson. These competitors weren't just looking to launch rockets, they were pushing the envelope in terms of tourism, satellite systems, and the eventual colonization of space. Musk knew that, if he was going to maintain his position as the industry leader, he would have to keep moving faster and thinking bigger than anyone else. But Musk wasn't worried. If there was one thing he had learned over the years, it was that competition was simply fuel for innovation. Instead of seeing his rivals as threats, he saw them as motivators to push the limits of what was possible. The more challenging the environment, the more determined he became to prove that nothing was impossible. In the case of Tesla, Musk was focused on maintaining his leadership in electric vehicles while simultaneously building out the company's infrastructure for clean energy solutions. The launch of the Cybertruck had been one of his boldest moves, not just because of its design, but because it represented Tesla's foray into a market dominated by heavy-duty trucks. But what surprised many was how the traditional automakers responded. Rather than dismissing Tesla as a niche player, they began ramping up their own efforts, launching electric trucks and competing directly with Tesla's models. Ford's electric F-150 Lightning had the potential to make a huge dent in Tesla's market share. While it wasn't as flashy or as revolutionary as the Cybertruck, the F-150 was a familiar nameplate with an enormous customer base. Rivian's R1T also began to gain attention for its rugged off-road capabilities and sleek design. Even Lucid Motors, which had once seemed like a small competitor, was now poised to disrupt the luxury electric sedan market with its Air model, which boasted impressive range and performance. The pressure to stay ahead in the EV race was immense. Musk knew that simply producing more electric vehicles wasn't enough. Tesla's strategy had always been rooted in constant innovation, and the company would have to push the envelope even further. He doubled down on efforts to improve battery technology, focusing on achieving even greater energy density and reducing the cost of production. The goal wasn't just to make EVs more accessible. It was to create a whole ecosystem where electric vehicles and clean energy solutions were seamlessly integrated. But as always, the media and critics were quick to point out challenges. Some questioned whether Tesla could continue to lead the market as competitors grew stronger. Others were skeptical of Tesla's ability to deliver on its ambitious goals, including the rollout of the long-awaited Tesla Semi and the promise of fully autonomous driving. Meanwhile, at SpaceX, the Mars colonization project was moving forward with increasing urgency. The completion of Starship, the rocket that Musk had envisioned to take humans to Mars, was drawing closer. SpaceX had achieved an impressive string of successes, including reusable rockets that had revolutionized space travel. But with the increased competition in the space race, Musk knew that the pressure was on. Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin had continued to develop its own rockets, including the New Shepard suborbital spacecraft, and its plans for lunar landings were gaining traction. Bezos' ultimate goal, like Musk's, was to build infrastructure for space exploration and habitation. However, Musk believed that his vision for Mars was far more ambitious and urgent. SpaceX was on the cusp of testing Starship's full capabilities. The goal wasn't just to send a few astronauts to Mars, it was to create a sustainable human settlement on the planet. Musk's approach was to build everything from the ground up: infrastructure, habitats, food sources, and even a thriving economy. The goal was to make Mars an extension of Earth, where humans could not only survive but thrive. But even as Musk poured resources into SpaceX's ambitions, he was keenly aware of the obstacles. Launch failures, regulatory hurdles, and public skepticism about the feasibility of Mars colonization were always lurking in the background. He'd seen how quickly people would turn against him when things didn't go perfectly. But the thought of giving up? That was simply not an option. The timeline for a Mars mission had always been fluid, but now, Musk set his sights on a bold new goal: launching the first crewed mission to Mars within the next 5 years. SpaceX was making rapid advancements with Starship's tests, and while setbacks were inevitable, Musk's resolve only grew stronger. As competitors like Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic continued to push forward in space tourism, Musk knew that his true mission wasn't about sending wealthy people on joyrides. It was about making life multiplanetary, and that meant focusing on Mars. The race to revolutionize the future of energy and space travel had reached a boiling point. Musk's enemies, rivals, and even some of his once loyal supporters were all questioning his ability to pull it all off. They doubted his vision of Mars, they doubted his commitment to fully autonomous vehicles, and they questioned whether Tesla and SpaceX could continue to lead when so many other companies were beginning to catch up. But Musk remained unwavering. He knew that the most important moments in history had always come at the tipping point, just before the world realized what was truly possible. The next few years would be critical. Musk's biggest test wouldn't just be in the success of his ventures, but in how he navigated the intensifying competition. And so, as the battle for innovation raged on, Musk prepared for his next big move, one that would challenge not just his companies, but the world's perception of what was achievable. Elon Musk was no stranger to adversity. Throughout his career, he had faced countless challenges: failed rocket launches, production bottlenecks, and relentless media scrutiny. But the crisis that emerged in the spring of 2025 was unlike anything he had encountered before. It wasn't a single event, but a series of interconnected problems that threatened to unravel the very foundation of his companies. It all started with a technological failure. SpaceX, in the midst of testing Starship for its first crewed mission to Mars, faced a catastrophic launch failure during one of its most critical tests. The rocket exploded mid-flight, sending shockwaves through the company and the entire aerospace community. It was a significant setback, not just for SpaceX, but for Musk's grand vision of making life multiplanetary. But the crisis didn't stop there. A series of issues began to arise at Tesla. A sudden disruption in the supply chain for crucial battery components led to production delays that severely impacted Tesla's ability to meet demand. The situation grew even more complicated when a battery recall was issued after some vehicles experienced safety issues. Though the recall was small, it was enough to raise concerns about the quality of Tesla's vehicles and dent the company's reputation. Then, there was the ongoing scrutiny of his personal life. With the media constantly keeping tabs on Musk's every move, any slight misstep seemed amplified. Rumors about internal strife at Tesla and SpaceX began to circulate, with anonymous sources claiming that Musk's leadership style was causing tension within his companies. Employees began to leak stories about long hours, intense pressure, and internal disagreements about the direction of the companies. Suddenly, the world's most ambitious entrepreneur found himself facing not just external criticism but internal strife as well. Musk had always been able to bounce back from failure before, but now, it felt like the weight of the world was on his shoulders. Musk was accustomed to working under pressure, but this crisis felt different. For the first time, he questioned whether his vision was too much, whether the world was ready for the level of disruption he was pushing for. In a meeting with his top executives at Tesla and SpaceX, The mood was tense. The Starship failure was still fresh in everyone's mind, and the production delays at Tesla had placed the company in a precarious position. "We need to take a step back and reassess," said Gwynne Shotwell, SpaceX's president, her voice measured but filled with concern. "This is a huge setback for us, Elon. And the Mars timeline, we're going to need more time. It's not going to happen in 5 years. We need to reset expectations." Musk didn't respond immediately. He stared at the conference table, deep in thought. Resetting expectations was something he had never been comfortable with. His whole career had been built on exceeding expectations, on making the impossible possible. But in that moment, he had to admit that things weren't going according to plan. At Tesla, the mood was similarly grim. The battery recall had caused ripple effects through the company's entire manufacturing process. While the problem was being addressed, it had damaged Tesla's reputation, especially with critics who were eager to point out every flaw in the company's operations. Musk was well aware that a damaged reputation in the EV market could be disastrous, especially with new competitors like Rivian and Lucid Motors growing more aggressive. Late one night, after a grueling day of meetings and crisis management, Musk sat alone in his office at SpaceX, reflecting on the journey that had brought him to this point. His walls were adorned with plans for Mars colonization, blueprints for future SpaceX missions, and sketches of new Tesla designs. But in that moment, it all felt like a distant dream. The failures, the setbacks, the media firestorms, they were all too real. He couldn't help but wonder, had he pushed too hard? Was his ambition so boundless that it had outpaced the world's ability to keep up? Musk had always prided himself on seeing the future before it arrived. But now, the future seemed like it was slipping away from him. For a brief moment, he allowed himself to feel the weight of the situation. But then, as always, something inside him shifted. Musk had never been one to dwell on failure for long. He knew that true innovation came from adversity, from facing the toughest challenges and coming out stronger. If there was one thing he had learned throughout his career, it was that the most successful ventures were the ones that seemed impossible in the beginning. With renewed resolve, Musk stood up, walking toward the windows of his office. The sprawling SpaceX campus lay beneath him, a testament to the years of hard work and setbacks. He could see the launch pad in the distance where Starship had once been poised to take flight. He thought about the billions of dollars, the countless hours of effort, and the lives of his teams that had been invested in this dream. And then, as he often did, Musk refocused on his larger vision, on the future of humanity, on Mars, on the sustainability of the planet. Musk knew that the crisis wasn't over. It was only just beginning. But he also understood that his best chance to get through this was to lean into the same principles that had driven his success in the past: perseverance, resilience, and, above all, vision. It was time for a bold move. Over the next few weeks, Musk did what he had done countless times before. He rallied his teams, communicating his renewed vision for Tesla and SpaceX. He reassured them that the setbacks were just that, setbacks. They didn't define the journey. And if anything, the challenges they were facing now would make the ultimate success that much sweeter. At SpaceX, Musk called for a full review of the Starship project, identifying the key failures in the recent launch and quickly implementing solutions. He wasn't going to let the failure define the mission. In fact, he was doubling down on it. The Starship project would continue, stronger, smarter, and more efficient. The mission to Mars was still on. At Tesla, Musk moved swiftly to address the production delays. He personally oversaw a redesign of the battery production process, working closely with his engineers to streamline operations and ensure that the issues with the recall were resolved quickly. He knew that the road ahead would be tough, but he was confident that Tesla could overcome the challenges, just as it had done in the past. As the news of Musk's renewed focus and commitment spread, the world watched closely. Critics continued to call him out, claiming that he had overextended himself, but Musk's supporters rallied behind him. The media, ever hungry for drama, was quick to report on the turnaround at Tesla and SpaceX, though they remained cautious about whether Musk could truly recover from this crisis. But in the depths of the storm, Musk had found his clarity. The failures, the doubts, the criticisms, they were all part of the process. And the greatest successes in history had always come after the greatest challenges. The world was holding its breath. The crisis that had rocked Tesla and SpaceX in 2025 had not only shaken the foundations of Elon Musk's companies, but it had also cast a shadow over his reputation. For the first time, some were beginning to question whether Musk could truly pull off his audacious dreams. But Musk, ever the visionary, wasn't about to back down. He had faced down challenges before, some of them far greater than this, and he knew that the only way forward was to make a bold, strategic comeback. Musk called a series of emergency meetings with his top executives at both Tesla and SpaceX. These meetings would shape the course of the next phase of his journey and, potentially, the future of both companies. The immediate priority for Tesla was to restore confidence in the brand. The recall, the supply chain disruptions, and the production delays had left customers and investors feeling uneasy. In the EV market, reputation was everything, and Tesla couldn't afford to lose the trust of its loyal customers. Musk knew that the road to recovery would start with transparency. He called an all-hands meeting with Tesla's employees, which was broadcast internally and to the media. The message was simple but powerful. We've had setbacks, but we're not backing down. We are going to fix what's broken, and we're going to move forward stronger than ever. The first step in this comeback strategy was addressing the battery recall. Musk took full responsibility for the issue, a move that many of his critics wouldn't have expected. But Musk's strength lay in his willingness to own mistakes and learn from them. He outlined a detailed plan for a revamped battery production process, one that would not only address the current issues but set a new industry standard for safety and reliability. Musk emphasized that Tesla would work hand-in-hand with regulators to ensure that every vehicle on the road was safe. Next, Musk launched a global campaign to highlight Tesla's commitment to sustainability. He knew that, while competitors like Rivian and Lucid Motors were nipping at Tesla's heels, there was still no company in the world that had the same breadth of vision. He emphasized Tesla's role in building a clean energy ecosystem, not just through electric vehicles but also with solar products, energy storage, and grid solutions. Tesla's plans weren't just about improving existing products. They were about expanding the brand's reach and impact. Musk announced plans for a new line of affordable electric vehicles designed to reach the mass market. While the high-end Tesla models had garnered worldwide acclaim, Musk knew that true change would come when electric vehicles were affordable for everyone. The goal wasn't just to sell cars, it was to lead the global transition to sustainable energy. While Tesla was working to regain its foothold in the electric vehicle market, SpaceX was facing its own set of challenges. The Starship failure had been a significant blow, not just because of the technical setback, but because it was perceived as a stumbling block to Musk's Mars vision. Some critics argued that SpaceX's grand plans for space exploration were too ambitious, that the company was over-promising and under-delivering. But Musk wasn't one to shy away from the impossible. He understood that the path to Mars was always going to be filled with obstacles. But if humanity was ever going to colonize another planet, it was going to take bold, relentless innovation. He called an all-hands meeting with SpaceX's engineers and developers. The mood was somber, but Musk was determined to reinvigorate his team with his vision. "We've hit a rough patch," he began, "but that's nothing new for us. We're building something no one thought possible. The road to Mars was never going to be easy, but it's still the mission. I need you all to keep your eyes on the future. This isn't just about one rocket, one failure. This is about changing humanity's future." Musk announced immediate changes to the Starship program, emphasizing a shift in the design and testing phases. He had already committed to increasing funding for R&D and creating a new testing protocol that would push the boundaries of space travel. He also revealed a new partnership with NASA that would provide critical funding and support for the Starship program. This partnership was not just a financial boost. It was a major validation for SpaceX, showing that the industry's top space agency still believed in Musk's vision. In addition to the Mars mission, Musk also ramped up SpaceX's satellite efforts. The Starlink program, which had started as a way to provide global internet coverage, was now an integral part of SpaceX's revenue model. Musk revealed that the Starlink network would soon be upgraded to provide not just internet, but also data infrastructure for a host of new applications, from global communications to scientific research. The partnership with Apple remained a key part of Musk's long-term strategy, but now it was more critical than ever. Tesla's push for energy solutions, and the goal of building a global clean energy ecosystem couldn't be achieved without deep technological integration. Musk and Tim Cook had discussed at length how Tesla's renewable energy products could seamlessly integrate with Apple's vast ecosystem, and now it was time to put those plans into action. Musk announced a new product line in collaboration with Apple, a range of Tesla energy products, including solar panels, batteries, and charging stations, that would be fully integrated into Apple's ecosystem. This would mean that users could monitor and control their home energy usage directly through their Apple devices, creating a seamless experience from energy generation to consumption. Musk believed this was the key to not just disrupting the electric vehicle market, but to transforming how the world thought about energy consumption. The collaboration would also see Tesla vehicles integrated with Apple services, from in-car navigation to advanced AI systems. Musk and Cook's vision was to create an entirely new type of consumer experience, where electric vehicles and smart home technologies worked in perfect harmony. By mid-2025, the tides were beginning to turn. Tesla had started to recover from its production delays, and the brand was slowly regaining its trust with customers. The revamped battery production process was already paying dividends, and the rollout of the new affordable EVs was generating excitement in the media. SpaceX's new direction with Starship and Starlink gave the company a renewed sense of purpose, and the partnership with NASA was proving to be invaluable. But perhaps the most significant change was the shift in Musk's own mindset. The failures, the setbacks, and the harsh criticism had all forced him to reevaluate his approach. He had always been a relentless innovator, but now he understood that true leadership wasn't just about pushing the boundaries. It was about resilience, adaptability, and learning from failure. The road ahead would still be filled with challenges. Tesla's competitors weren't slowing down, and SpaceX had a long way to go before it could achieve its Mars mission. But Musk knew one thing for certain: the future had never looked brighter. With his companies back on track and his vision clearer than ever, he was ready for whatever came next. By late 2025, things were beginning to settle down for Musk, at least on the surface. Tesla's recovery was well underway. SpaceX had regained its momentum, and the new collaboration with Apple was starting to yield tangible results. Yet, the future had a way of surprising him. A new, unexpected development was about to unfold, one that would change the trajectory of both Tesla and SpaceX in ways no one could have anticipated. It started when Musk received an unexpected invitation to meet with one of his fiercest competitors, Jeff Bezos. Bezos, the founder of Amazon and Blue Origin, had always been one of Musk's biggest rivals in the race to space, but their relationship had been tense at best. Both men shared a vision of humanity's future among the stars, but they had often clashed over the approach. Musk's focus on Mars had always been at odds with Bezos' vision of building a Blue Origin for human civilization to expand throughout the solar system. Their rivalry had often played out publicly, with Musk often taking swipes at Bezos and vice versa. Yet, the invitation had Musk intrigued. It wasn't typical for Bezos to extend a hand to Musk, at least, not publicly. What could this meeting be about? When Musk arrived at the Amazon headquarters in Seattle, he was greeted with an atmosphere far different from what he expected. The offices were sleek and modern, with walls lined with impressive tech innovations. Bezos himself was there to greet him, wearing his signature calm, confident demeanor. "Elon, thanks for making the trip," Bezos said, extending his hand with a tight smile. "I think it's time we have a serious conversation." Musk raised an eyebrow but shook his hand. "All right, Jeff, I'm listening. What's this about?" Bezos didn't waste any time. "Look, we both know that space is the next frontier. But let's be honest, both of us are trying to do it on our own. And while we've each made impressive strides, the truth is, the scale of what we're trying to accomplish requires more than just one company or one person." Musk leaned back in his chair, curious but cautious. "You're suggesting what? A merger? A partnership?" Bezos nodded, though Musk could see that he wasn't entirely comfortable with the suggestion. "A partnership," he confirmed. "A strategic alliance, at least. We have complementary strengths. Blue Origin has the technology and vision for orbital space stations, but you're the one actually landing rockets and achieving a sustainable program. We both know how difficult it is to fund and manage large-scale space missions on our own." Musk crossed his arms, deep in thought. This was unexpected, to say the least. While he had always believed in competition driving innovation, he also understood that working together could potentially speed up humanity's progress in space. But trusting Bezos was a whole different issue. Why now? Musk asked, still skeptical. And why me? You've been pushing your own agenda with Blue Origin for years. What's changed? Bezos seemed to hesitate for a moment before answering. The timeline for humanity's expansion into space is longer than we initially thought. The resources, the technologies, and the expertise needed to make space colonization a reality are more complex than either of us predicted. And I've realized something. I'm not going to make it to Mars on my own. I think we could do something much bigger together. Think of it as pooling our resources to make a stronger push for the entire solar system. Musk's eyes narrowed as he processed this new information. A partnership with Bezos could lead to huge advantages. SpaceX had pioneered reusable rockets, but Blue Origin had quietly been making significant strides in other areas like orbital platforms and deep space technologies. Together, they could cover much more ground. But there was still one issue. Musk didn't trust Bezos. Their history of rivalry wasn't something that could be easily erased with a handshake. "I'm not making any promises, Jeff," Musk said, his voice measured. "But I'll consider it. Let's see what your team has to offer. I'm not interested in being sidetracked. If we're going to work together, we need to be clear about the vision." Bezos nodded. "I understand. Let's take this slow, see if it makes sense. The goal here is to align our efforts for the greater good, not compete for scraps in the same sandbox." Musk agreed to move forward with a cautious exploration of the partnership. The next few weeks were filled with high-level meetings, where engineers and space specialists from both companies would meet and discuss the possibilities. Musk and Bezos began to open a dialogue that, while still guarded, hinted at a powerful potential alliance. If it worked, the two companies could share the vast resources they'd each accumulated over the years, pooling their efforts to build the infrastructure needed to make space travel and colonization a reality. By the end of the month, the two companies had developed a detailed proposal for the alliance. The focus would be on the long-term goal of expanding human presence in the solar system, with both companies contributing in different but complementary ways. SpaceX would continue to focus on its Mars mission, while Blue Origin would take the lead on the development of orbital space stations, deep space missions, and advanced space habitats. Musk had always been fixated on Mars, but Bezos had a more expansive vision. Their combined efforts could make colonization of both Mars and the Moon far more achievable in the coming decades. Tesla would also play a significant role in the alliance. The collaboration between Tesla's clean energy solutions and the vast amounts of power required for deep space missions could be revolutionary. Musk envisioned a future where solar panels and energy storage systems powered not just homes on Earth, but entire colonies on Mars and the Moon. It was a bold, ambitious plan. But for the first time in years, Musk felt a sense of optimism. The partnership was still in its early stages, but it felt like the pieces were starting to fall into place. Space exploration was no longer just a race. It was a joint effort between two of the most visionary companies in the world. As the proposal gained traction, the public began to take notice. Space enthusiasts, scientists, and even political leaders rallied behind the idea of Musk and Bezos joining forces. The world knew that this was a defining moment in the history of space exploration. Together, SpaceX and Blue Origin could redefine what humanity thought was possible. But Musk knew that the journey was far from over. There would still be opposition, both internal and external. The road to Mars was still long, and the challenges of colonizing another planet had only just begun. But now, with the alliance in place, Musk felt a renewed sense of purpose. He wasn't in this alone. As he sat in his office late one night, looking out over the bustling SpaceX campus, Musk allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. The challenges he had faced, the failures, and the crises, everything had led to this point. And now, with the help of a former rival, the next chapter of his ambitious journey was about to unfold. The ambitious alliance between SpaceX and Blue Origin was heralded as a historic moment for space exploration. For the first time, two of the most powerful companies in the space industry were coming together to pursue a common goal: expanding humanity's presence beyond Earth. The combined forces of Musk's innovative technologies and Bezos' extensive infrastructure had the potential to revolutionize space travel. But, as always, the road to success was not without its obstacles. While the initial optimism surrounding the partnership was high, a series of roadblocks soon began to emerge, threatening to derail the collaborative efforts. Though the leadership of Musk and Bezos had agreed to cooperate, there were tensions within both companies. SpaceX, a company known for its unrelenting pace and disruption of the space industry, had its own way of doing things. SpaceX's culture was one of rapid innovation, constant risk-taking, and relentless pursuit of Mars. On the other hand, Blue Origin's more methodical approach, which had focused on building reusable rockets and long-term sustainability, clashed with SpaceX's more aggressive strategies. At the first few joint meetings between their teams, differences in approach became glaringly evident. SpaceX engineers were focused on pushing the boundaries of rocket technology, while Blue Origin's team was more cautious, preferring to optimize existing technologies before scaling up. Musk was frustrated by what he saw as a lack of urgency in Blue Origin's approach. "Time isn't on our side, Jeff," Musk said during a meeting. "We're not just trying to make space more accessible. We're trying to make humanity a multiplanetary species. Every delay puts us further from that goal. If we want to be the first to get there, we can't afford to move at a glacial pace." Bezos, calm as ever, responded, "I get that, Elon, but let's not sacrifice safety and stability for speed. Our goal should be a sustainable future, not just making headlines with a fast launch." The tension was palpable. Despite their mutual respect, the differences in their leadership styles were beginning to strain the alliance. SpaceX's drive for immediate progress was at odds with Blue Origin's focus on long-term development. Neither approach was wrong, but they weren't easy to reconcile. As if internal challenges weren't enough, the partnership also faced growing pushback from government agencies and space regulators. Both SpaceX and Blue Origin had long enjoyed government contracts for NASA missions, but the merging of their efforts raised concerns about the monopolization of the space industry. In Washington, D.C., some legislators began questioning the fairness of a combined SpaceX-Blue Origin powerhouse controlling the lion's share of space exploration contracts. Regulatory bodies feared that an alliance between the two companies could stifle competition, resulting in higher costs and fewer options for future projects. A bill was even introduced to break up the partnership before it could gain full momentum. One senator, who had long been a vocal advocate for increasing competition in the space sector, spoke out against the merger, stating, "This partnership could give one corporate entity too much influence over the direction of space exploration. We need a diverse and competitive market, not a monopoly." Musk, who had been focused on the technological and visionary aspects of the alliance, now found himself in the uncomfortable position of defending the partnership to a skeptical government. "The goal here isn't control, it's progress," Musk argued at a congressional hearing. "We're working together to make space more accessible, to make Mars a reality. We need the government to support the partnership if we're going to get there." Bezos, always the diplomatic one, tried to emphasize the long-term benefits of the collaboration. "This isn't just about profit," Bezos said. "It's about creating a foundation for space exploration that benefits humanity as a whole. We're building the infrastructure needed for future generations." Despite their best efforts, the pressure from politicians and regulators continued to mount. It seemed that every time the partnership made progress, new obstacles popped up, delaying their joint ventures and creating uncertainty in the industry. The media, ever hungry for a good story, also began to stir the pot. While the initial press releases surrounding the partnership had been positive, it didn't take long for negative headlines to surface. Journalists began to report on the tensions within the partnership, speculating about potential cracks in the alliance. The feud between Musk and Bezos, once seen as healthy competition, was now seen as a roadblock to the greater goal. In addition to the internal struggles, there were persistent rumors that the partnership was faltering. Reports surfaced claiming that SpaceX engineers were frustrated with the pace of progress and that Blue Origin was growing increasingly disillusioned with Musk's moonshot mentality. The media turned the tensions into a full-fledged narrative, painting the collaboration as a failure before it had even had a chance to truly take off. Is Musk's dream of Mars doomed? Inside the strained SpaceX-Blue Origin partnership, read one headline. Another story suggested Musk and Bezos, rivals who can't get along, but are forced to work together. These reports, while far from the truth, sowed doubt in the public's mind about the future of the partnership. The media frenzy created even more pressure for Musk and Bezos to act. Both men had long been accustomed to media scrutiny, but the constant barrage of negative coverage was starting to take a toll on their public image and, more importantly, the trust of their teams. If they couldn't resolve the growing tension between their companies, their combined efforts might crumble under the weight of expectations. It was clear that the partnership needed a new direction, a fresh approach that would allow both SpaceX and Blue Origin to move forward without compromising their core values. After weeks of intense discussions and negotiations, Musk and Bezos agreed on a compromise that would allow each company to pursue its own independent goals while still collaborating in key areas. Instead of a fully integrated merger, the two companies would focus on joint ventures for specific projects. SpaceX would continue to lead the charge for Mars exploration, while Blue Origin would take the lead in orbital infrastructure, lunar missions, and space tourism. They would still share some technologies and collaborate on large-scale projects, but each company would maintain its autonomy. This new structure allowed SpaceX to continue its aggressive push for Mars, while Blue Origin could develop its long-term vision of building the infrastructure for humanity's expansion into space. Both companies would benefit from shared resources, but without sacrificing their individual missions. Musk and Bezos held a joint press conference to announce the new direction for their collaboration. The media, eager for any insight into the future of space exploration, was waiting with bated breath. "We've heard the concerns," Musk said, looking directly at the cameras. "We understand that there's been a lot of speculation about our partnership. But the truth is, we are both committed to one thing: the future of humanity in space. This collaboration is about making sure we get there, together, but independently." Bezos followed with a similar statement. "This isn't about two companies fighting for dominance. It's about cooperation. Space is too big for any one company to control, and together, we can do more than we ever could apart." The new approach seemed to be a hit. The media, while still skeptical, recognized that both Musk and Bezos had found a way to work together without fully sacrificing their visions. The partnership, though less integrated than initially planned, still held the potential to push space exploration to new heights. Despite the early struggles, the partnership between SpaceX and Blue Origin began to stabilize. With each company focusing on its strengths, the industry as a whole began to see the benefits of their collaboration. The road ahead was long, and the obstacles were far from over, but for the first time in months, both Musk and Bezos felt a sense of optimism. The roadblocks weren't gone, but they had learned to navigate them. The true test would come in the years to come, when their visions for humanity's future in space would be put to the ultimate test. The stakes were higher than ever, but one thing was clear: Musk and Bezos were in this for the long haul. By the middle of 2026, the partnership between SpaceX and Blue Origin had hit a series of snags, but the companies had found a new rhythm. With each taking on its own distinct mission, SpaceX pushing towards Mars and Blue Origin building its lunar base and orbital infrastructure, the public and the industry began to see the benefits of their strategic divergence. However, space exploration had a way of throwing curveballs, and just when things seemed stable, a monumental setback would test both companies' resolve. The summer of 2026 was shaping up to be one of the most ambitious periods for SpaceX. After years of refining technology, the company was finally preparing for its first crewed mission to Mars. The excitement around the mission was immense, with billions of people around the world watching eagerly as SpaceX prepared to launch the most complex space mission ever attempted. Yet, just days before the launch, disaster struck. A critical failure in one of the spacecraft's life support systems during the final pre-launch tests sent shockwaves through the SpaceX team. Engineers scrambled to understand what went wrong. Despite having conducted rigorous safety checks, this issue had never been anticipated. For a brief moment, Musk stood in his office, staring at the message on his computer screen that confirmed the failure. The shock was palpable. This wasn't just a setback, this was a full-blown crisis. A failure of this magnitude could delay the Mars mission for years, and Musk's ambitious timeline would now be in jeopardy. The media, which had been following the mission closely, jumped on the news. Headlines like "SpaceX Mars mission delayed," "Another Musk failure," began to circulate. The pressure was mounting. Musk knew the stakes. this wasn't just about SpaceX. It was about humanity's hope of reaching Mars. This mission wasn't just a commercial venture. It was a symbol of something bigger. Bezos reached out immediately after hearing the news. While SpaceX was working around the clock to fix the issue, Blue Origin's support came in the form of knowledge sharing, resources, and expertise. Bezos, recognizing the gravity of the situation, suggested that the two companies align on their goals once again, particularly when it came to life support technologies, an area where Blue Origin had significant experience due to their lunar missions. Elon, Bezos said over the phone, his tone measured but urgent. This is going to take more than just a SpaceX solution. You know what we've been working on for the moon base, right? We can help with life support systems, and maybe there's a way we can fast-track the necessary upgrades for you. Musk, at his breaking point, had no choice but to accept help. Send me your best engineers. We don't have time to be proud right now. The crisis response at SpaceX was immediate. Musk, usually known for his intense independence, was now relying on a team from Blue Origin to assist in the repairs. Engineers from both companies worked tirelessly around the clock to fix the problem with the life support systems, collaborating to ensure that the mission could go ahead as planned. Despite the setback, Musk refused to acknowledge defeat. This was not the end. It was simply another hurdle. We're going to fix this, Musk said during a meeting with SpaceX engineers. Mars is waiting for us, and we're going to get there, together, if necessary. Yet, as the days passed, the pressure continued to mount. Engineers worked in grueling shifts, sometimes not sleeping for days as they worked to troubleshoot and rebuild parts of the spacecraft. Time was slipping away, and the closer they came to the new launch date, the more they realized that they were pushing the limits of what was possible. There was no room for error. While SpaceX was in full crisis mode, Blue Origin quietly began preparing to help in other ways. Bezos knew that the future of space exploration depended on the success of this mission, and he wasn't about to let his rival fail in front of the world. Together, they began to rebuild the life support system, drawing from Blue Origin's lunar expertise. This wasn't just a collaboration between two companies, it was a race against time. As the engineers worked to solve the problem, the media intensified its scrutiny. The mission to Mars was seen as the benchmark for the future of space exploration, and any delay was disastrous. On social media, memes and criticisms about Musk's failed mission began to circulate. Some people even began to question Musk's capacity to lead, noting the numerous setbacks SpaceX had faced in recent years. But there were also fans who defended him, arguing that setbacks were part of innovation. Musk stayed largely silent in public. He was known for being outspoken and confident, but in this instance, he knew that the only way to move forward was to stay focused. He gave an occasional update to the public, but his main focus remained on the engineers working tirelessly to fix the spacecraft. It was a pivotal moment for Musk. Known for his unshakable confidence, he had always taken risks that most others would never dare. His companies had succeeded where others had failed, but this failure, this crisis, was different. For the first time, he found himself admitting the limitations of his team, his technology, and his own ambition. And while it was a humbling experience, it was also a powerful lesson. Musk had always been driven by the desire to prove the impossible was possible, but this experience showed him that even the most audacious goals required collaboration, humility, and time. The pressure he'd felt during those days of crisis taught him something vital, that true progress didn't come from a single mind or a single company. It came from a community of people working together toward a common goal. And perhaps for the first time, Musk truly understood the value of alliances, not just as a business strategy, but as a means of ensuring that the ultimate goals could be achieved. As the deadline approached, a breakthrough came. After days of intense collaboration between SpaceX and Blue Origin engineers, the new life support system was finally up and running. The spacecraft had passed all of its final tests, and it was ready to launch. The Mars mission was back on track. The media, which had been buzzing with doubt and skepticism, now began to change its tune. SpaceX and Blue Origin solve crisis together. Mars mission set to launch, one headline read. The story was no longer about Musk's failure. It was about the resilience of two great minds and their teams working together in the face of adversity. Musk, while still under immense pressure, could finally breathe a little easier. The mission was back on track, and humanity's journey to Mars was closer than ever. As Musk stood in front of the spacecraft in the final hours before the launch, he took a moment to reflect on the journey that had brought him here. The challenges, the setbacks, and the triumphs. For the first time, he truly understood the importance of collaboration. While the dream of Mars had always been his, the reality of reaching it would be a collective effort. He didn't just need his own brilliance. He needed the expertise of others. And together, they were going to reach Mars, one step at a time. The final countdown to the Mars mission had begun. After months of setbacks, sleepless nights, and endless revisions, SpaceX's Mars-bound spacecraft was ready for liftoff. The eyes of the world were on them, and Musk had already promised that failure was not an option. This mission wasn't just about one company. It was about the entire human race, the future of space exploration, and the hope of a new era of discovery. But even as the rocket stood on the launch pad, the tension was palpable. For the first time in his career, Musk felt the weight of the responsibility. The countdown clock ticked down, and as the moment neared, his thoughts raced through the days of collaboration with Blue Origin, the setbacks, the crises, and the ultimate realization that getting to Mars was about more than just technology. It was about the people who helped bring it to life. The night of the launch, Musk stood at the SpaceX Command Center, surrounded by his closest engineers and a handful of press members who had been granted access. There was a sense of quiet excitement mixed with apprehension. The spacecraft had undergone rigorous testing, and the issues with the life support system had been resolved. The countdown was now at T-minus 5 minutes, and the silence in the room was deafening. Musk checked his watch, then turned to his team. His usual confidence was tempered by a genuine sense of uncertainty. Despite everything, despite all the setbacks, doubts had begun to creep in. Could they really do this? Was Mars really possible? It wasn't just the technology at stake. It was his dream, a dream that had driven him for years, perhaps longer than he realized. "Are we ready?" Musk asked, his voice steady but betraying a hint of the pressure mounting in his chest. "We're ready," said Gwynne Shotwell, SpaceX's president, her voice calm. "Everything's in place. This is it, Elon. We're making history." The room fell silent as the final seconds approached. The launch pad lights illuminated the rocket, casting long shadows on the faces of the team. The world was waiting. T-minus 1 minute. Musk took a deep breath, his gaze fixed on the screens in front of him. For a fleeting moment, he thought of all the people who had believed in him and SpaceX, and the millions of others who had followed the journey from Earth to Mars. 10, 9, 8. The voice from the launch control system echoed through the room. Musk's heart pounded as he stood frozen, watching the countdown unfold. 3, 2, 1. Liftoff. The roar of the engines shook the building. The rocket's powerful thrust lifted it into the sky, sending it on its way toward Mars. The whole world seemed to hold its breath as the spacecraft left Earth's atmosphere and began its long, treacherous journey into space. Musk felt a surge of relief mixed with exhilaration. The impossible had become reality. The spacecraft was on its way, and there was no turning back now. As the rocket ascended and entered space, Musk allowed himself a moment to reflect. The launch was a success, but the real challenge was still ahead. They were about to send humans into the unknown, and Mars was no picnic. The risks of space travel were always there, lurking in the back of every engineer's mind. Even now, as the spacecraft sped toward its destination, the unknown dangers of interplanetary travel loomed large. The media frenzy that followed the successful launch was, as expected, massive. Every outlet around the world was covering the historic event, with commentators and analysts discussing the significance of the mission. Musk's vision for Mars was becoming a reality, and people were beginning to believe, really believe, that humanity might one day live on the red planet. But while the world celebrated the success of the launch, Musk couldn't shake the underlying tension. He knew this was just the beginning. They had taken the first step, but Mars was still a long way off. Musk's leadership was under intense scrutiny. Every move he made, every decision he took, was watched closely by the media, the public, and his competitors. Success or failure on Mars would define his legacy, and the pressure to succeed was suffocating. Despite the celebration around him, Musk often retreated into the quiet solitude of his thoughts. He thought about his family, his past struggles, the failures that had shaped him, and the immense responsibility now resting on his shoulders. The path to success was always fraught with difficulty, but now, more than ever, he knew that the stakes were higher than they had ever been before. He thought back to the moments of doubt during the crisis with Blue Origin, the fears that this mission might fail, that all of this could come crashing down. But now, standing on the precipice of the next great leap for mankind, he realized that those doubts were part of the process. Failure was an option, but it was never the end. It was just a part of the journey. "I didn't get here by being afraid of failure," he muttered to himself. "I got here by daring to dream." While the immediate crisis had passed, the real challenges were just beginning. The spacecraft would be in space for several months before reaching Mars, and during that time, Musk and his team would be monitoring its progress, facing unforeseen complications, and, most likely, dealing with emergencies along the way. As much as the mission to Mars had captured the imagination of the world, Musk knew it would be the unknown problems, those that no one had predicted, that would shape the outcome. Mars wasn't going to be easy. The danger of radiation, microgravity effects on the human body, and the challenges of landing on the Martian surface were just a few of the hurdles waiting to be overcome. But for now, Musk was focused on the success of the launch. SpaceX had done it, and humanity had taken its first step toward becoming a multiplanetary species. He had no time to bask in the glory. He had to keep moving, keep innovating, and keep pushing forward, because no one would remember this moment if they couldn't follow through with the mission's success. As the spacecraft sailed farther into space, the partnership with Blue Origin became more important than ever. While SpaceX had led the charge to launch the Mars mission, Blue Origin had quietly supported them with the critical technology needed to make the mission possible. Bezos and Musk, despite their occasional rivalry, recognized that their collaboration had been pivotal. Blue Origin had supplied key resources in space infrastructure and life support systems, and now both companies shared the responsibility of ensuring humanity's future in space. In an unexpected move, Bezos had suggested a long-term joint venture, an intercompany project to build the infrastructure for Martian colonization. The mission to Mars would be the first step, but the real challenge would be making Mars habitable for humans. Together, SpaceX and Blue Origin would need to figure out how to establish a permanent presence on the red planet. The challenge was daunting, but the two billionaires, once fierce competitors, now saw the benefit of combining their forces for the greater good. Musk knew that no matter how advanced their technology became, space exploration would require the collaboration of the best minds across multiple industries. The partnership was no longer just about winning. It was about surviving, thriving, and ensuring that humanity could live on Mars. The mission was on track, but Musk's journey was far from over. While the first step toward Mars had been taken, there would be more obstacles to overcome, political hurdles, technical failures, and perhaps even greater risks than he could predict. But one thing was certain: the future of space exploration had changed forever. And whether it was SpaceX, Blue Origin, or another company leading the charge, the dream of reaching Mars was no longer a distant fantasy. It was a reality. As Musk stood there, watching the trajectory of the spacecraft on the screen, he could finally say what he had wanted to for years: "We're on our way to Mars." As the Mars mission steadily advanced through space, with each passing day bringing the spacecraft closer to its destination, Musk and his team continued to monitor every aspect of the journey. The crew aboard the spacecraft remained in high spirits, fully aware of the monumental nature of their mission. Meanwhile, SpaceX's ground team worked tirelessly to ensure that everything stayed on course. However, as the spacecraft crossed the halfway point to Mars, something unexpected happened that would challenge everything Musk thought he knew about space travel. It was just a typical day at the SpaceX command center when the anomaly occurred. The mission was going smoothly, the crew aboard the spacecraft was in good health, and everything seemed to be functioning as planned. But then, at precisely 2:17 a.m., a strange signal was detected on SpaceX's radar. At first, the engineers thought it was a glitch, a temporary blip caused by the vast distances and interference from cosmic radiation. But as the signal persisted, it became clear that something else was at play. The signal wasn't a random disturbance. It was structured, rhythmic, almost as if it were intentional. Musk, who had been asleep in his office after a long day of meetings, was woken up by an urgent message from the command center. He rushed into the control room, where the engineering team was already working on decoding the signal. "Is it another satellite or just space noise?" Musk asked, his voice hoarse from being suddenly jolted awake. "We've ruled that out, Elon," replied one of the lead engineers. "This is something different. The signal is repeating at a regular frequency, and it seems to be coming from somewhere beyond our spacecraft's current position." The room fell silent. Everyone knew that beyond the spacecraft lay nothing but the endless expanse of space. But now, it seemed that they were not alone. Musk stared at the screens as the signal patterns began to form a recognizable structure. The nature of the signal itself was both intriguing and unsettling. It wasn't like anything SpaceX's team had ever encountered, certainly not from any known satellite or cosmic phenomena. The frequency was too deliberate, the modulation too precise. Could this be extraterrestrial? Musk asked quietly, though he knew it was a long shot. Another engineer, who had been analyzing the signal, shook their head. "We don't know yet. We've never encountered something like this before. It's not in any of our databases." The possibility of contact with extraterrestrial intelligence was a thought that had crossed many minds over the years, but it had always been relegated to the realm of science fiction. And yet, here they were, facing a signal that defied explanation. Musk's mind raced. If this was truly an intelligent signal, it could change everything, not just for SpaceX, but for humanity's understanding of the universe. He thought of the implications for the Mars mission. If they were to make contact with an alien civilization, it could alter the course of their journey entirely. What if this signal was a warning, a message, or worse, a trap? The immediate question that Musk and his team had to address was what to do about this unexpected signal. Should they continue on their course to Mars, or should they investigate the source of the signal? The crew, having just crossed the halfway point in their journey, was facing a dilemma. Complete the mission as planned, or risk the unknown by diverting their path. "I don't know if we can ignore this," Musk said, his tone serious. "This could be the most important discovery in human history. If we're in contact with an alien civilization, we need to figure out how to respond." Despite the uncertainty, Musk made a bold decision. He ordered the team to adjust the spacecraft's trajectory toward the source of the signal. It was a calculated risk, but he knew that in space exploration, risks were inevitable. And some risks had the potential to change the course of history. For the next several days, the spacecraft altered its course, navigating toward the mysterious signal. Each time the team tried to engage with the signal, they received no response, but they continued to track it. The crew on board was well aware of the gravity of the situation. They were headed into unknown territory, and no one knew what awaited them. The crew aboard the spacecraft, despite the tension, had been trained for moments of uncertainty. They knew that they were venturing into the unknown and had been briefed on the potential risks and rewards of space exploration. But this was different. They had been tasked with making history by being the first humans to reach Mars, but now they had been thrust into the role of pioneers in a far greater sense. Captain Amelia Mia Chun, the mission commander, addressed the crew during a meeting. "We've been trained to handle every challenge, but this is something beyond anything we could have anticipated. The decision to divert our course is a risk. We don't know what lies ahead, and we don't know if it's safe. But we're here to make history, and sometimes history calls for actions that are unconventional." The crew members looked at each other, their faces reflecting a mix of apprehension and excitement. They were explorers at heart, and the allure of the unknown was as powerful as any mission to Mars. "I'm with you, Captain," said Lieutenant Chris Rivera, the mission's communications officer. "If we don't investigate this, we may regret it forever. It's worth the risk." As the crew made their final preparations for the unknown journey, Musk's thoughts turned to the implications for the future. He knew that this decision would not only shape their mission, but could also define the future of humanity's place in the cosmos. Days passed, and the spacecraft's trajectory brought them closer to the source of the signal. As they approached, the team began to detect more peculiarities, anomalies in the spacecraft systems, strange gravitational shifts, and unusual fluctuations in the signal. Something was out there, and it was close. Then, as the spacecraft passed the final point on its altered course, they encountered something truly extraordinary. Before them, in the vast emptiness of space, was a massive structure, something that defied all known understanding of space technology. It was enormous, far larger than anything SpaceX had ever encountered, and it appeared to be an artificial construct. Its surface was unlike anything seen before, a blend of metallic alloys that shimmered in the light of distant stars. There were no visible markings or structures, just an enormous, silent monolith floating in space. Musk, who had been following the developments from Earth, stared at the live feed, his heart pounding. This is it. This is real. The signal, which had been leading them here, had suddenly stopped. Whatever this structure was, it had been waiting. But waiting for what? As the spacecraft approached the alien monolith, Musk allowed himself a moment of reflection. He had spent his entire career focused on reaching Mars, on achieving what no one thought possible. But this was something else entirely. This was a discovery that could change everything. Mars might just be the beginning. He thought of the countless hours spent with his team, the failures, the successes, the years of work that had led to this moment. The idea of reaching Mars was no longer the culmination of his journey. It was just one part of the greater mystery that lay ahead. And as he stared at the monolith, Musk couldn't help but wonder, was humanity ready for what they might find next? The spacecraft hovered near the monolith, its engines barely whispering in the vacuum of space. The crew aboard was silent, their breath held in anticipation. The vastness of the object before them was overwhelming. They had all seen the images, the simulations, the theories, but none of them could have prepared for this. The monolith was real, standing in stark contrast to the nothingness of space. Captain Mia Chan stood at the front of the command deck, her hands gripping the console as she tried to steady herself. She glanced at the mission control team, their eyes wide and focused on the screen. "We're here," she muttered, almost to herself. The mysterious object was unlike anything they had ever seen before. It was a smooth, seemingly seamless structure that appeared to be made from an unknown material. The edges were sharp, its size incomprehensible in comparison to the smallness of their spacecraft. It was as though something vast and ancient had been planted in the middle of the cosmos, waiting. Musk, watching from Earth, felt a chill run down his spine. "What happens next?" he whispered into the silence of his office. The world was watching, waiting for an answer to one of humanity's oldest questions. "Are we alone?" "Captain," Lieutenant Chris Rivera spoke up, his voice breaking the silence. "We've been receiving a series of faint pulses, almost like a heartbeat. It's irregular, but it's definitely coming from the monolith." "Heartbeat?" Mia raised an eyebrow. "It's too consistent to be random noise. It's like it's waiting for something." The decision now lay squarely on their shoulders. No manual or textbook could prepare them for the next move. Mia had trained her entire life for space exploration, for the potential of discovery, but never in her wildest dreams did she imagine being in this moment, this unprecedented moment of first contact. Her voice was steady, but inside, she felt the weight of the responsibility pressing on her. "We need to send a signal. Let's try to make contact." The communications team quickly worked together to send a simple radio pulse toward the monolith. It was a basic signal, human-made, hoping for a response, something that might open the door to understanding. Mia watched the screen closely, her pulse quickening. There was no immediate response, only the silent hum of the spacecraft systems. They waited. Seconds passed, and then minutes. Nothing. But then, the monolith shifted. A low, vibrating hum filled the air. At first, it was faint, almost imperceptible, but as the signal grew stronger, it became undeniable. A beam of light erupted from the center of the monolith, sending a brilliant flash that illuminated the space around them. The light pulsed, rhythmically, in response to their signal. Musk watched in awe from Earth. "They've received it," he whispered. The monolith, alive in its own way, had responded. Humanity had just made contact with something far beyond their understanding. But what would happen next? And more importantly, what did this mean for the Mars mission? The monolith's pulsing light intensified. The vibrations deepened, now accompanied by a strange, harmonic sound. A sound that seemed to penetrate not just the spacecraft's hull, but into the very minds of those aboard. It was a deep, resonating hum that carried a sense of knowing. For a moment, Mia felt something strange. A fleeting thought that wasn't her own, a sensation that lingered in the back of her mind. The feeling of something far older, far wiser, speaking to her. Not through words, but through a shared, almost instinctual understanding. And then, the voice came. It was not a voice in the traditional sense. There were no words, no recognizable language. Instead, it was a direct, overwhelming transfer of thought, information, ideas, concepts, flooding their minds in a way they could barely comprehend. In that moment, every member of the crew felt it. The weight of ancient knowledge, the understanding that they were on the precipice of a monumental revelation. Mia shook her head, trying to clear the disorienting sensation. What is this? We're receiving thoughts, said Lieutenant Rivera, his voice shaking. This is something beyond human understanding. But just as quickly as the sensation had begun, it faded. The light dimmed, and the monolith became still again, silent, like it had never been alive at all. The crew was left in stunned silence. The voice they had heard, the thoughts they had felt, were beyond anything they could grasp. They were not alone in the universe, not in the way they had ever expected. But now, they had to decide what to do with this knowledge. Mia slowly exhaled, her mind racing. "What do we do now?" she asked, looking around at her team. "We don't know," Chris said. "We've made contact, but it's not clear. Are they? Are they communicating with us? Are we supposed to what?" Mia's mind was spinning, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty. This was only the beginning. The monolith had shared something with them, but it wasn't enough. "Not yet. We need to report this back to Earth," she said finally, her voice firm. "And we need to prepare for whatever comes next. This isn't just about us anymore. This is about humanity." Back on Earth, Musk's team had been tracking the transmission, analyzing the signal. As soon as the crew sent their report, the entire world stood still. The possibility of extraterrestrial life had always been a distant thought, a speculation. Now, it was undeniable. Humanity had reached a new chapter in its existence. Musk was in a conference call with key members of the international space agencies, the U.S. government, and leading scientific minds. The room was filled with tension as they discussed the potential implications of the discovery. But amidst the tension, Musk stood resolute. He understood what was at stake. "This is our moment," he said, his voice calm but resolute. "The future of space exploration and humanity itself has just been altered. We've made contact. Now we need to be ready for what comes next. Mars is no longer the destination. The entire universe just became our frontier." In the days that followed, the monolith remained silent, its intentions unclear. The crew aboard the spacecraft continued to monitor the object, but they had no answers, only questions. What did the monolith's response mean? Was it a sign of something greater, or was it simply a piece of technology left behind by an ancient civilization? The implications of their discovery were far-reaching. The world watched as humanity grappled with the concept of not being alone in the universe. Governments, scientific communities, and private entities like SpaceX began to reframe their plans. The next steps were uncertain, but one thing was clear. The next chapter in human history was already being written, and it was far bigger than anyone had anticipated. Elon Musk, back on Earth, felt the weight of this new reality. His dream of reaching Mars now seemed small in comparison. The universe was vast, and humanity had just taken its first step into an unknown future. As he stared at the feed from the spacecraft, Musk whispered to himself, "We've just scratched the surface. This is only the beginning." The days following the encounter with the monolith felt surreal. The world was still reeling from the discovery, and the implications were vast. The monolith's signal, its mysterious response, had ignited a firestorm of theories, debates, and discussions across the globe. What had humanity just experienced? Was this the beginning of a new era of space exploration? Or was it a harbinger of something far more dangerous? As the crew of the spacecraft continued to monitor the monolith, they found themselves in a kind of limbo. The object had become quiet, unyielding to any further attempts at communication. The rhythmic pulses had stopped, The light no longer flickered. It was as if the monolith had retreated into the cosmos, waiting for something, or perhaps for nothing at all. Mia-chan, the mission commander, sat in her quarters, staring out of the spacecraft's window. The vastness of space stretched before her, infinite and unyielding. Mars, the goal of their mission, was still far ahead, but the journey had taken on a new meaning. They were no longer just astronauts heading to another planet. They were pioneers on the precipice of a discovery that could change everything. Back on Earth, Elon Musk and his team at SpaceX were grappling with their own version of uncertainty. The monolith, the signal, the strange, almost spiritual sensation that had filled the minds of the crew. It was all still unresolved. Musk knew that what they had stumbled upon was no ordinary technological advancement. This was something entirely different, something that defied human understanding. The world's governments were also wrestling with how to respond. Was the monolith a sign of an advanced alien civilization, or was it something entirely beyond their comprehension? The potential ramifications were staggering. Humanity was at a crossroads. Either they would proceed with caution and prepare for all possibilities, or they would throw caution to the wind and embark on a bold new journey. Elon Musk, never one to shy away from boldness, had already begun to make plans. SpaceX's vision had always extended beyond Mars, to the stars, to the unknown. And now, the unknown had come to them. Musk convened a series of meetings with his closest advisors. In one, he gathered scientists, engineers, and strategists to discuss the next steps. There was a palpable sense of urgency in the air. Whatever they did next would shape the future of space exploration and humanity itself. "We have to move forward," Musk said, his voice resolute. "We've made contact. We can't just sit here and wait. If this monolith is a sign of something greater, something beyond our understanding, we have a responsibility to investigate it, to take humanity to the next level." One of the senior engineers, Dr. Lisa Tran, voiced a concern that had been on many minds. "But Elon, we don't even know what we're dealing with here. The monolith could be dangerous. What if it's a trap? What if we don't understand the full implications of what we're facing?" Musk nodded thoughtfully. "I know the risks, Lisa, but inaction isn't an option. We can't let fear dictate our decisions. The unknown is our greatest opportunity. If we stand still, we might never get another chance like this." The conversation turned to the next mission. Musk's vision had always been grand. Mars, the moon, the stars. But this was different. The monolith was not just a destination. It was an invitation to something far greater. And so, the decision was made. SpaceX would begin preparing a new mission. One that would go beyond Mars, one that would venture into the unknown, to find out what the monolith truly was. The mission would be an unprecedented endeavor. It would require new technology, new spacecraft, and an entirely new level of collaboration between governments, private companies, and international organizations. But Musk was unwavering in his commitment. The future of humanity lay beyond the stars, and the monolith was their first clue. Meanwhile, Mia-chan and her crew remained in space, in orbit around the monolith. The atmosphere aboard the spacecraft had shifted. There was a sense of anticipation, a growing realization that their mission to Mars might no longer be the ultimate goal. They were now participants in something far larger than they had imagined. "We've made history," Mia said to her crew one evening. "We've opened the door to a new era of exploration. We don't know what's next, but we're the ones who are here to find out." Her words rang true. They had made history. And as the days passed, the crew began preparing for what would come next. They had been told to stand by for a new mission, one that would take them beyond the boundaries of Mars, possibly toward the monolith itself. But as the crew trained, adjusted their systems, and fine-tuned their spacecraft, Mia and her team couldn't help but wonder what lay ahead. Was humanity truly ready for whatever might come from this first contact? What did it mean to open the door to the unknown? Back on Earth, the announcement of the new mission caused a ripple of excitement and fear. SpaceX's plans were bold, daring, but they were also a sign of something far more profound. Humanity was no longer just a species trying to survive on a single planet. Humanity was stepping into the cosmic unknown. Musk's leadership became a symbol of hope for many, a beacon in the darkness of space. but it also invited skepticism and criticism from those who feared the risks of the unknown. Governments around the world scrambled to formulate their own plans and strategies. The monolith was too important to ignore, but its mysteries were far too complex to understand without further investigation. The media exploded with speculation, each news outlet offering a new theory on the monolith's origins, its purpose, and its implications. Was it a message from an ancient alien race? A remnant of a long-gone civilization? Or was it something far more enigmatic? Something that transcended the very notion of alien life? Musk and his team worked tirelessly to keep the public informed, but there was no clear answer. The truth, if it existed, lay beyond their reach for now. As the months passed, SpaceX prepared for the most ambitious mission in human history, the Monolith mission. The spacecraft was being retrofitted with new technology, and new crew members were being selected from an international pool of candidates. It would be the most diverse crew ever assembled for a space mission, representing the best and brightest minds from across the globe. Musk, standing before the cameras during the announcement of the mission, spoke with a clarity and passion that captivated the world. We stand at the edge of a new frontier. What we've discovered in space is not just the future of exploration, it's the future of humanity. This monolith is a doorway. What lies beyond it is our destiny. Together, we will push beyond the limits of what we thought was possible, and we will take the first steps into the unknown. As the world watched, Musk's words resonated deeply. It was no longer about Mars, or even Earth. It was about something far greater, humanity's place in the universe and the limitless potential that lay ahead. The monolith was just the beginning. What came next would define the future of humankind for generations to come. The countdown to the new mission had begun. The entire world had its eyes on SpaceX and its groundbreaking monolith mission. As the crew on the spacecraft prepared for what could be the most important journey in human history, the pressure to succeed weighed heavily on them. No one knew what they would find when they ventured beyond Mars, into the vast emptiness of deep space, toward the monolith's mysterious origins. Captain Mia Chan stood on the command deck, staring out at the stars. The crew was finishing their final preparations, the spacecraft humming with activity. The mission was about to move from theory into reality, and the implications of their journey were monumental. She felt a sense of awe, of fear, and of deep responsibility all at once. This wasn't just about exploration. This was about defining humanity's future. Captain, Lieutenant Chris Rivera's voice broke through her thoughts. We're ready. The ship systems are green across the board. All we need now is your go. Mia nodded, her mind racing. She had trained for this moment for years, leading a crew, making decisions in the face of uncertainty, but nothing could have prepared her for this. She turned to face Chris and the rest of the team, their eyes filled with a mix of excitement and apprehension. All right, Mia said, her voice firm. Let's do this. We're going to make history. With a final check of the spacecraft systems, Mia gave the order to launch. The engines roared to life, the craft shuddering as it pushed off from its orbit around Mars. It was strange to think that just a few months ago, their mission was to be the first crewed mission to Mars. Now, it was a secondary objective, a stepping stone in a journey far beyond their expectations. The crew had spent the last several weeks training and preparing for the long journey. The spacecraft had been equipped with the latest technology, including advanced AI systems that could help navigate the uncharted space they were entering. The monolith had been their first contact with something beyond human comprehension, and now they were going to follow its trail. The unknown stretched before them. As the ship coasted into deep space, Mia watched the Earth grow smaller on the view screen. It was a humbling sight, the blue marble of humanity's home, a fragile, in the vastness of the universe. We're leaving everything we know behind, Chris said quietly, his voice tinged with awe. What happens when we get there? What do we even do if the monolith is gone? Mia turned to him. We keep going. We find answers. No matter what's waiting out there, we face it together. The unknown was terrifying, yes, but it was also the greatest opportunity humanity had ever faced. There were no guarantees, but they had to try. Days turned into weeks as the crew traversed the endless void of space. The excitement of the mission hadn't worn off, but it was replaced by a constant, nagging uncertainty. The monolith was still out there, but no one could predict what they would find when they arrived. It wasn't until the 15th day of their journey that something unexpected happened. The communications officer, Ensign Robert Vance, had been monitoring the deep space frequency when a faint signal appeared on the radar. It was unlike anything they had detected before. "Captain, you're going to want to see this," Robert said, his voice tight with excitement. Mia immediately went to the console, her heart pounding in her chest. She watched as the signal grew stronger, clearer. It wasn't the same pulse they had encountered before, but it was unmistakably related to the monolith. A new signal. A message. Is it a response from the monolith? Lieutenant Rivera asked, his voice filled with disbelief. Mia squinted at the data, her mind racing. It's possible, but it's different this time. The pattern is more complex, almost like it's trying to communicate with us again, but in a way we can't yet understand. Can we decode it? Chris asked. We'll try, Mia said. Prepare the communication systems. We're not letting this chance slip by. The crew worked quickly to decode the signal. It was unlike anything they had ever encountered. No simple radio wave or alien language. The transmission was more like a complex, multi-layered code, one that seemed to resonate not just through their equipment, but inside their minds. It was almost as if the message was reaching directly into their thoughts, pulling out memories and emotions that had long been buried. As the crew analyzed the signal, a sudden realization hit Mia. The signal wasn't just a message. It was a puzzle. The monolith wasn't trying to give them information outright. It was asking them to think, to work together, to decipher the meaning of what it had left behind. For hours, the team worked, analyzing each fragment of the message. They compared it to the data from their previous encounters with the monolith. Gradually, they began to understand the pattern. It was a map of deep space. But it wasn't just any map. It was a roadmap to something extraordinary. A location far beyond the known universe. An uncharted sector of space that held the key to unlocking the deepest mysteries of existence. The monolith had been waiting for humanity to find it. And now, the crew had the coordinates. Mia's heart skipped a beat. This wasn't just about exploring space. This was the beginning of something far greater. "We've found it," Mia said, barely able to keep her voice steady. "The monolith is leading us somewhere. A place where the answers are waiting." Mia looked at her crew. Their faces were filled with the same mixture of wonder and uncertainty that she felt. This was no longer just a mission to explore the unknown. It was a journey into the heart of existence itself. They had been handed the keys to a door that had been locked for millennia. But what lay behind it? Was humanity ready for the truth? Or would they be consumed by the knowledge they sought? "What do we do now?" Chris asked, his voice almost a whisper. Mia stood there, staring at the map on the screen. The decision weighed on her. This was more than just a decision for the crew. It was a decision for humanity. They could continue the journey and discover what lay beyond. Or they could turn back, knowing they had unlocked something no one else could. "We go," Mia said, her voice steady. "We go all the way. We owe it to humanity to find the answers. We're going to take the next step together." The crew nodded in unison, their resolve hardening. They would continue. There was no turning back. As the spacecraft adjusted course toward the coordinates, a sense of purpose settled over Mia and her crew. The future was uncertain, but they had made the decision. There was no fear, no doubt, only the understanding that they were part of something far greater than themselves. And as the stars stretched out before them, as the unknown beckoned with its promise of discovery, Mia couldn't help but feel that they were standing on the precipice of the greatest adventure humanity had ever known. The monolith had opened the door. Now, it was up to them to walk through it. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?